Is Tuesday. What's echoing? Today is Tuesday, April the 5th, 2022. This is a work session of the Board of County Commissioners. It is 1 o'clock, and we have delightful invited guests here today. So, ladies, would you like to introduce yourselves and let us know what you're here to speak with us about?
Thank you, Patty. I am Debbie Braun, president of the Aspen Chamber Resort Association, and here with me is Eliza Voss, the VP of Destination Management. And we know SkiCo comes in and gives you guys updates quite a bit, and we thought this was a really good time for the Chamber to come in and begin to speak with the county commissioners on our destination management plan that we've just finished up. Just as some background, ACRA, the Aspen Chamber, takes a lodging tax from the city of Aspen. So the Aspen lodges remit to the city of Aspen a 2% lodging tax. The Aspen Chamber gets 75% of that, and then transportation gets 25%. And that's important because when the tax first started back in 2000, we understood that bringing people into our community, we were going to have to people move them around. So being able to connect those two taxes together has been really advantageous. Now, here we are in 2022, kind of a mature destination, and we really need to, well, we've really honed in on the fact that marketing in the off seasons, marketing all the time might not be what our community needs or wants anymore. So we've really begun to do this pivot and shift to destination management. So we spent the last year working on the destination management plan, and in fact spoke to over 1,000 Pitkin County residents. And your residents have a lot to say. So without further ado, Eliza's just going to run us through the destination management plan, some of the findings and the research, and then we would be happy to take any questions afterwards.
Perfect.
Thank you.
That's great. All right, it's all yours.
Okay, let me share my screen, which 2 years in
And we
I
have
should be able
IT,
to
we have
do.
Mikkel over here, so if we have any, she knows when I'm on, she's got to be somewhere nearby.
Okay, as Debbie mentioned, we started shifting towards destination management from destination marketing a couple years ago, actually all the way back in 2015. The directive from the community was not to bring in additional tourists during basically the 8 peak weeks of summer, but to extend the season into that spring, which we used to call secret season, and of course mid-week fall and into October. So that's when we started that back in 2015, which was really a dispersion tactic, management tactic. We then pivoted in about 2017 after we saw those unprecedented tragedies on Capitol Peak with some visitor-facing education efforts. So that looked like the How-To campaign, the Aspen Pledge, etc. And then in 2019, we got ourselves as an organization accredited with Destinations International, which offers the highest level of accreditation in the industry. So really setting ourselves up for success and best practices. And then in 2020, prior to the pandemic, we did launch a 5-year new strategic plan, which included the directive to move forward with a comprehensive destination management plan for the Chamber, which we did kick off in July of 2021. And the reason we did this is really to preserve the quality of life for our residents while actually protecting the very reason people enjoy coming to the area. So there's a lot of different ways. It is also not specific to Aspen. This is a shift in the industry that we're seeing. Lots of destinations with high use time periods are experiencing this shift from marketing to management. So an overview of the process. This was led by ACRA, paid for by ACRA through that lodging tax. Destination Think, which is an international company, led the engagement process, but ultimately this plan does belong to the community. So we did 10 one-on-one interviews with key stakeholders, so that included Pitkin County, the City of Aspen, the Forest Service, Aspen Skiing Company, Snowmass Tourism. So we had 10 one-on-one interviews with key stakeholders. We conducted 2 tourism town halls. We did 2 co-creation labs, so that was checking back in with the residents on where we were in the process. We did 1,299, couldn't quite hit that 1,300 mark, but 1,299 surveys with the residents. And then they did quite a bit of desk side research. So they looked at things like the Mountain Migration Report, the Aspen Area Community Plan, the Sustainability Report. So a lot of information fed into this, and I really want to thank the community for stepping up and really engaging, because ultimately that is what fed the plan and is what we're getting the outcome of. So I'll run you through, just because it's interesting to us, this is who responded to the survey. So they gave it actually a 95% confidence rate, and their goal had been about 640 surveys, so we far surpassed that with our passion for community. And interesting to note that these attributes of what makes Aspen Aspen in the eyes of the residents are also the things that are attracting people here for visitation. So everybody is attracted to the place for the same reason. This, the beautiful but angry slide, I quite like. It really points out that being touristy has started to overshadow the sense of pride that we have in this community, and that's really something we need to pay attention to. Also, fake and in transition were high up there, so these are things that we are paying attention to and looking at how to address.
What does fake mean? What do you mean?
So residents had to pick some attributes from a list on the survey, and you could interpret it what you want, but this was a high ranking,
Attributes
8%.
of Aspen.
Yes, attributes of
Fake.
Aspen.
Interesting.
So all of the engagement led to seeking or identifying the Aspen challenges, which are, very familiar with us at this point in time, with staff shortages, mountain migration, visitor pressure, social inequality, transportation management, and a lack of economic diversification. I think we're all very familiar with these issues at this point in time, and we're coming at it again from the visitation lens, but as a full community plan, it will take buy-in from across sectors, so real estate, government sector, tourism, stakeholders, et cetera, to address them. Conclusions out of this, out of the engagement and the challenges, is of course that the visitor profile has shifted and more education is required. I think we can also agree that a little bit the resident profile has shifted, and so new resident education would be helpful into tackling all of these challenges. We did discover that stakeholders want ACRA to take a larger role in facilitating responsible tourism. And of course, something that's been picked up quite a lot in the local media is maintaining some downtime during the shoulder seasons. And I'll get more to that during the strategies, but overall, these are the conclusions. As you know, as elected officials, this can all feel pretty heavy of trying to kind of go at all of this from a positive way, but we do feel like there is a path forward if we work together, and being really mindful about how we choose to be a destination where with high use time periods from our visitors. So that leads us to the 3 pillars of the plan, which are addressing visitor pressure, enhancing the Aspen experience, and preserving small town character. And we have strategies under each of these 3 pillars to address them. And of course, because we're a little bit of overachievers, we've already added some more to the preserving small town character. But I would like to say that because the plan belongs to the community, we can adjust it as the community needs change as well. There's also this knowing.
Hang on just a second.
Sure.
So you have points under each of those 3. Are you going to share those with us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Because I want to see what you have to say about preserving the small town character.
Lead, partner, and advocate. So there's different roles that ACRA will specifically play under each strategy. Sometimes we'll lead, but of course in other areas we'll be more of a partner or an advocate. So again, this will take full community buy-in and lift, which is why we're pretty mindful about the engagement process, so that we have buy-in and we can really affect change together, because obviously not all of these issues can be solved in a vacuum. So Francie, here is the big chart, but I'm going to go through each one and give some examples. So a lot of these strategic priorities overlap. So, there may be one listed under enhancing the Aspen experience, but it also will touch on some that are under addressing visitor pressure, et cetera. So it's all very comprehensive and intertwined, and that is on purpose. So going through, let me just have a little water. So the first strategic priority under addressing visitor pressure is engaging in 360-degree feedback with residents and industry. So ACRA is really great at speaking with the business community, but something that we've identified through this process is that we need to get in touch with our residents more, inform them of what we're already doing and what they would like us to do more of, so increase that two-way communication. One way we're going to do that is generate an email database list for residents so we can communicate to them directly. We're also looking at how we can go beyond the owner-manager level of our business outreach and really speak to employees. So we'll just continue to be checking back in with the residents and industry so that we can incorporate anything that needs to change within the plan. Enhancing visitor education. Again, this is something that we've already sort of been doing with the How-To campaign and the Aspen Pledge, but it's come to our attention not everybody is aware of the Aspen Pledge, so we're really going to relaunch that this summer with a big splash, make sure people understand the way of life in Aspen. And another piece of this is enhancing new resident education. So we've been in touch with the Aspen Historical Society and City of Aspen on how we could partner on providing either a program, like an actual event for new residents, or is it something more like a welcome wagon packet of information that goes from the real estate agent to a new homeowner, so that everybody understands and is operating on the same level playing field. Addressing traffic and congestion issues. Here's somewhere where we're going to advocate, because it's not something really that's something we can take a lead on, but examples in that would be advocating for free bus service all the way down to Glenwood. We are in communications as part of the Fly Aspen Snowmass Committee to work on transportation into the valley to replace the CME loss, which is that ground transportation, as well as facilitating some sort of direct shuttle between the airport and downtown to relieve congestion. Another thing that came up from the board level is Aspen Valley Hospital employees have to come all the way into town to switch buses. So it would behoove us to advocate for the switch to occur maybe at Brush Creek instead, to facilitate that last mile connection. So again, those are all advocacy roles that ACRA can play and work with partners throughout the valley. Preserving and regenerating the natural environment. These we will play a lead partner and advocate role. We're working with the Maroon Bells Comprehensive Recreation Management Plan, so we're part of that steering committee as a funding member. So that's a partnership with the county and the city and the ski company, as well as RAFTA and the U.S. Forest Service. We are also partnering with Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers to sponsor 2 cleanup days. So really understanding the importance of the environment to Aspen and the visitor and preserving that. We're going to work as a partner and advocate to accelerate the reduction of the carbon footprint of tourism. There is some great work being done here with Atlantic Aviation offsetting the carbon footprint at the Aspen Airport, as well as the Good Traveler program. And then we are, of course, aligned with the Paris Agreement climate action goals, but there is potential for Aspen to be a leader in this space, so perhaps we go and push further. And again, that would be an advocacy role for ACRA to push for governments to go a little bit further.
What do you mean by the externalities of air travel? What do you mean by the externalities of air travel, of private jets?
So the additional carbon footprint of a private jet bringing in a smaller amount of people versus commercial aviation.
Okay.
And we have been in touch with Dan at the airport, and there will be, so Destination Think is a international company. So some of the recommendations in the plan are not necessarily things that can go into effect in a US based airport. So we'll just have to work with Dan at the airport to understand what is possible.
And Destination Think is an amazing group. They were awesome from the get-go. I did a small breakout session, and it was it was really fun, and it was really comfortable, and it just drew out a lot of information that I don't think we normally get from people. They were pretty incredible.
Thank you. Then, so this is the first one under enhancing the Aspen Experience. So improve the visitor and resident experience. An example of this that was picked up locally in the press, of course, is limiting actions to promote off-season. So again, this is a shift from the directive that ACRA was given by the community several years ago. But really, there was this desire to protect the off-season. And I think with the Aspen Airport closure in May, there is a natural break in that. But also, we will be checking back in with the community to understand what it is they actually want with the preservation of the off-season. Another example of this, when you look at improving wayfinding, we have formed with the other chambers in the valley, the Roaring Fork Valley Destination Alliance. So looking at partnering across the valley for universal signage at trailheads to understand right-of-way, picking up dog waste, as well as trashing the trash. So working at a full community level to improve some of those experiences, both for visitors and residents. Diversifying our visitor markets. Again, they recommend stop advertising to direct fly markets and luxury only. So removing that geographic and household income target and really looking at how we can target people with like-minded values to the community. So they still may live in a direct fly market, but hoping that we are reaching people who want to be mindful of the environment, sustainability, and preservation, as well as interest in the arts and culture and recreational opportunities. Another example is we are part of a Colorado Tourism Office grant for promotion of historic opera houses across the state. So that is a niche market of those people interested in visiting historic opera houses, and we're partnering, of course, with our own Wheeler Opera House, but Lake County as well as Central City. So that's a nice niche market to tap into.
Yours is Lake County's the Tabor, isn't it?
Yes.
Tabor? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Number 8 is being a catalyst for sustainable choices. So many businesses have already started to phase out single-use plastics, but could ACRA advocate for a further reduction of single-use plastics or single-use water bottles, et cetera? So that is something that we would be working on, probably with government entities to put that into play. And also reaching out to our businesses to find out what offerings they have that are low impact and sustainable, and promoting those. Redefining visitor economy opportunities. This is something we have tagged that would be a phase 2 or 3. So looking really further down the line at the implementation of this plan, because we really need to see how the geopolitics at play phase out in terms of visitation right now. But this would be looking at what types of experiences, for example, could we do an itinerary for someone to walk between the towns of the Roaring Fork Valley using the Rio Grande as a visitor opportunity. But again, this would require us engaging again with the residents and looking at what types of opportunities and experiences they would like to offer and see here. Now we move into preserving small town character. Again, housing crisis solutions, we're in an advocacy role here, not a lead role. We are working with Aspen Skiing Company and Snowmass Tourism and longtime occupancy partner Dusty Metrics to provide us a look at what the short-term rental market looks like here in the area, so that we have reliable data to provide both to Pitkin County and the city of Aspen as they're looking at implementing restrictions or other regulations in that area. And of course, advocating for affordable housing throughout the year as needed. Developing a resident ambassador program. This is another thing that we've tagged for later on in the development of the plan, but it would take 2 steps. So we would create kind of an education platform for residents who are interested to be educated in guest service, but also in the history of Aspen and how to share that with our visitors. I've seen this implemented in Canada, where you're partnered with a resident as kind of like a tour guide, and you get really a boots on the ground experience and a local perspective on, why town matters or why this trail matters, and you really find that connection with the place, so you have more of a reverence to protecting it. And I did mention we have gone a little bit out of the scope but we are looking at advocating for the enforcement of the formula retail ordinance in town as a part of the preservation of small town character. So that's been brought up at CCLC.
What is that?
The chain store ordinance.
Oh,
I had a suggestion.
Yes.
I think you should start a take a local to dinner program,
I like
or lunch
that.
or breakfast. I mean, it's amazing what conversation you can have over, eggs at the Hickory House, or, pizza at New York. And it might be kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'll volunteer.
Okay. I like it.
I'll be taken.
Okay, yeah, I'll be taken. I know all the places you can dine.
And then, so all of these strategic priorities under the 3 pillars, of course, need to acknowledge that we've been listening and heard the residents. And so we're looking at what kind of action we can take that will really make an impact to initiate this change that we're trying to see. And you may be familiar with the Defy Ordinary campaign, which launched about 11 years ago. And that was a campaign that was initially informed by resident sentiment. So looking at relaunching that prior to this upcoming summer season and really reinstilling that sense of pride and values in the community. And then, so it would be locally facing first before going out into, the broader audience. So that is trying to take these strategic priorities, make them creative, and get that action with impact that we're looking for. And that is just a little something we've been working on.
That's awesome.
Your photographs are awesome.
The whole thing is awesome. Nice job.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to look at the board and see if the board has, Greg, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, great. I'm sorry I can't be there. Deb and Eliza, great to see you, and thanks for bringing this in. This is, of course, I knew it was coming, and I'm very excited to see it here. And I think it's great. And I did want to say I'm right on to so much of what you said. And I think that I really love it when you focus not only on how do we talk to tourists, but how do we talk to locals? How do we talk to the new locals? As we all talk about the influx of the COVID second homeowners who now might be living here, how do we embrace them and bring them into the community so that they understand our culture and values? And of course, it's a two-way street. We might learn something from them as well. But that's what makes our community so vibrant and wonderful. So I really do think that's great. Responsible tourism, responsible locals, all that part, And I kind of wanted to ask you, after doing these studies and seeing all this, what sets us apart from other, tourist towns? We've been copied in the past, so we knew we were onto something. But what do you think sets Aspen apart from other places people could go? For instance, just in the ski town, in the Rockies. That would be a question I'd love to ask, because I think I'd like to hone in on that. And of course, my argument would be that it's not just the skiing, it's not just the hiking. We have an incredible cultural entity here, and I'm worried about it. I'm worried about the music festival and the ballet and the jazz and all the things we have here. I want them to remain robust, because they really help define our character and define our uniqueness. And so that, to me, is an important thing. I loved what you just said about walking between communities. We could have a pilgrimage. We could do pilgrimages to Carbondale, something like that. I did want to bring up the one thing that I was looking for. I didn't see, only because I haven't talked to you much about it, is the idea of creating a steady state resort that isn't based on a growth model for economic development or for solving its problems. It's easy to grow in various ways in order to solve a problem. And certainly it's been the growth model for the entire country for a couple of centuries now. But I'm wondering if we can have this conversation about establishing a steady state where we have turnover, we have change, we have new and good and redevelopment, but we don't have, that we're not so dependent upon growth. That would be an advocacy thing for you, but it's also something where you have a lot of influence, and this powerful marketing you're doing could probably go a long way to talk about, how do we maintain this incredible community for decades to come, and avoid that dance with mediocrity. I love what was the campaign you just said? It was
Defy
the last one you mentioned 11 years ago. What's that called?
Defy ordinary.
Defy ordinary.
Yeah.
Defy ordinary. Yeah, it's like I completely agree, and sometimes I wonder, how are we doing? How are we doing on that? How have we been doing? But I think your efforts here are right on, and I don't know if you want to address any of that, but those are my 2 cents. Thanks.
I'll do one part, Greg. I think what sets us apart, while you're thinking about attributes, I'm going to destinations and talking to other DMOs. What sets Aspen apart is we don't look back, we do look forward, but the amount of collaboration that takes place in this community does not take place in any other community. People say to me all the time, how could you have government officials voting on your board? You're a chamber, your business. And I think if I don't know your perspective, how can we ever get any better? So I think outside of saving the music festival and all those other great things, we do have a year-round, robust arts and culture, outdoor recreation. It's actually the rising tide lifts all the boats. We are talking to everyone and listening to what other people have to say. And I do think that's what makes Aspen and Pitkin County, in my opinion, stand out. Now, Eliza can get into the attributes, but on a much larger scale, it's how we all work together.
I think that, thank you. That's great. I appreciate that. It was while you were saying that, I was thinking just the level of volunteerism we have in this community, for how people get so engaged, is so important to us. And I think that's a key element. And I don't know if Eliza wants to add anything to that, but just, we do have so many locals, and that's your ambassador program is right on.
Yeah, let me just add real quick that I think, Greg, as far as the volunteerism, our volunteerism starts at all ages. My 6-year-old grandson volunteered at an opening of an open space Mid-Valley. That was his first experience, and he thought it was really neat that he got to help with that. And I think if we were starting them young, and it's just going to be ingrained in them as they hopefully grow older in our community. So before I let you start, Kelly, did you want to chime in on this?
No, they should reply to Greg, and then I'll
Okay,
have some
all right, great, thanks.
comment.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that it is sort of the intangibles that set Aspen apart. There's a lot of beautiful places that you could visit, but I think that we all know that there is something about the community that actually attracts people to come here, which is why it's so important to preserve that. Otherwise, you become, indistinguishable from another pretty mountain town that may have a music festival or similar. And then I think you had asked one other question about
The growth model.
Oh, the growth model. Part of this is to become more resilient, so that it's not growth, but it is, instead of having such an impact, for example, if something like COVID or a wildfire hits, that we have some resiliency built into our community to weather those storms a little bit better.
Great. Okay, Kelly?
Great, thank you. And first, I just want to really thank you for all this work, because, the turning anecdote into data is completely immeasurable. So I just find that this information becomes such an important part of other conversations that I know myself and others engage on. So I really appreciate that. And, I appreciate the high quality of it. I think if you had 1,300 survey responses, it would have seemed fishy. So I think I guess just some thoughts on this. I will say this is a little out of my wheelhouse. Some of this stuff, it feels kind of amorphous to me. I'm okay, what is the exact thing you're going to do? And how are you going to measure it? So that's just probably more my unfamiliarity of how you guys approach all of this. But I have some concerns. Like I'm concerned that, if locals can't participate in the local economy, then we're not going to have like these opportunities to sort of mix and share experience and share knowledge and share history. And so, I wonder if there's a little more data related to things like how do we get more locally serving business happening? What does ACRA see as kind of your role in the diversification of the economy? From where I sit, sometimes I look at like other colleagues around the state where like other municipalities and other counties like have economic development programs, whereas we don't. Is this a real gap where we should be looking at, how did Steamboat Springs get so successful on attracting and supporting, great businesses? I mean, great local, steamboat-based businesses that are not just tourism based. I really have some concerns that I know we have an employee shortage, but is there a future where we're not just generating more low paying jobs? Is there a future where we're like transitioning work to fill in a middle class, in our community? And what would that look like? And does ACRA take on that role? So that's just some of the stuff I think about when I look at the whole picture here of, the thriving and sort of the underbelly as well of our economy, and what I'm curious as to what your thoughts are.
Well, one thing is I've been working closely with Kara Silvernagle on the county team on the DOLA grant that we received, which was part of kind of resilience into the, and I know that the focus of that is housing at this point, but there is also, and I'm sorry, I'm totally blanking on the group that's working on
The Housing Alliance?
no, it's it is for workforce development, and part of that is education and kind of keeping people within the workforce, but moving them through. And I can follow up via email. But there is a group, I believe it's based out of Glenwood, and we did send a letter of support.
what
that
it
Is it Workforce Development? Carolyn Tucker?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Carolyn Tucker. So there is work being done in that space, but I agree with you. I think we all have identified it through the work with the DOLA grant that there is a need to kind of keep people engaged in the workforce and make sure that there's an understanding that you could move through and kind of further your career, and it's not just a one-way situation. So I feel like there is great work being done there, and it just, kind of a silver lining of COVID is that we have this open line of communication with a lot more organizations than we weren't working with before to further that work. And for your question about the data, we have engaged with a data platform called Destination Analysts, and they will be establishing some key performance indicators to be able to measure our success with this plan. So we have kind of this baseline resident sentiment, and the hope would be to improve upon that, but also get visitor sentiment, because I think we've discussed that there may be a lack of, the expectations may not be meeting the value of, or the prices people are paying. So kind of establishing visitor sentiment and then also trying to improve upon that. So we will be using data to measure against, and hopefully we can come back and, give you a good news report in a little bit of time.
Yeah, and then Kelly, just to follow up on the economic development, bad word here and in the city. So the chamber always says economic sustainability. Are we going to be sustainable? And while we don't go out as like an economic development team that would take government, that would take business to go out and look, there are some opportunities. We do know the uphill economy that the city was working on, that has a feeling of something that could fall into our community through the ski providers. Some of the places that have a lower impact with So uphill economy is one thing that they've stopped working on, and the chamber is very curious if maybe we can start picking that up and looking at that as an industry that is a little bit more low impact. So really, our website, people come to it every day. They call us every day about moving business here. So we do a little of that work, but we've really tried to stay out of economic development and just try to partner with local government instead.
Sure, I appreciate that. And I think of more of like diversification, right? Like how do we sort of shift work for the people that live here for more, I think, rewarding and high paying experiences. And I just see it as a real gap in the community right now. So just more
Thank
to
you.
think about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Francie, no, you had Hannah, but Steve's had his.
Okay, I'll go after Steve.
Okay, Steve, go ahead. Thanks, Francie.
Okay, thank you. In looking at enhancing the Aspen experience, a lot of people are feeling that the Aspen experience is degrading right now. It's going the wrong direction. They're just the shortage of workers, so people have not so good of service in some of the local stores as they maybe did previously. The fact that the part of the music festival was eliminated because the music festival couldn't provide housing for the same number of students that they had in the past. These trends are troubling to me. They're largely related to the lack of housing or lack of affordable housing for the workers and for the music students. Now, I know that quite a few years ago, the music school had put out a plea or an offer to people in the community to help house their students. And we took them up on that one summer. We had 2 music students stay at our house. Now, years later, I don't even remember what year that was. It was 10 or 15 years ago. And those 2 music students are really part of our extended family here. We have lifelong relationships with them. This year, the music school didn't come out to the community and say, "Help! We need people to take in music students." I think if they had done that, they could have gotten enough housing for all of the students and not had to cut their program. And I bring this up just to point out that, if we're working together on this and helping each other out, the whole community should have helped the music school to provide housing for their students. There are some structural problems with the affordable housing that the city of Aspen and the county commissioners are working on from another angle, but we're kind of missing the boat, I think, in some of the community spirit that we used to have in helping provide housing for workers, give people really inexpensive place to live in their house. Maybe it's not high quality kind of a place for someone to live, but that's the way, a couple generations of people have survived here and we're kind of losing that. And I'm looking for solutions. We're all looking for solutions, but do you have any take on that, how you could help with part of the solution? And a lot of it has to do with the housing, just to provide, make up for the shortage of workers, but also just to provide the traditional things like the music festival. We start losing chunks of the music festival. That's going the wrong direction in my estimation. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, Francie?
Do
Do you want to respond? Go
Yeah,
ahead. No, go ahead.
We agree, and I do think that, I received a mailer from the music festival requesting housing. So we are trying as a chamber to get that message out on their behalf as well. But I think another thing that we've talked about is that new resident education, and that would be an opportunity where we discuss how the history of the community and what it means to be part of the community is kind of lifting up those historical institutions, so that the new homeowner who may have extra space in their home understands that, oh, part of the reason we have this wonderful amenity is because it's been community supported. So I think ACRA's role there would be education, and then of course assisting in furthering getting the word out that, you know, that's needed. You know, I know Telluride lost their Ride Festival for a similar reason. They can't house the roadies for the musicians. So it is something that all of the nonprofits are facing, from jazz to Theater Aspen, and I think we are going to try and amplify that kind of call to community to get the need out. But part of that is also, as you mentioned, kind of reinforcing that community ideal of opening up your home that has been historically successful here.
So Steve, Alan Fletcher sits on the board, and I will make sure that he knows you have 2 bedrooms available because they're still looking. And in our e-newsletter, we have been blasting out housing, not only for the music festival, but for some other of the smaller arts and cultural organizations that do rely on housing. So we feel like we're talking to the business, and I think this represents that point we made earlier, that we don't talk to the resident enough, because here we have a need, and it would be great if we could start sending that information out to residents as well. So thank you for that comment. It does resonate with all of us and the board of the Aspen Chamber.
Great, thanks.
And also, you know, there's been it's kind of humorous, this whole thing about the duct tape crowd that's come out in the newspapers recently. And I place myself firmly in the camp of the duct tape crowd, coming from a poor ranching family who worked, of hardworking people, and just making do with what we have, and using baling twine and duct tape sometimes to patch things up. So there are still a lot of us in that duct tape crowd, so-called duct tape crowd, who are, you know, been around for decades here in the Aspen area, and many of them struggling to hold on, but we don't want to lose that element of our community. We need to cherish that, the heritage that we have.
We're duct taped too, Steve.
Well, my daughter went to the prom.
Steve.
Some of the kids who went to the prom actually made their gowns out of duct tape and their tuxedos. I don't know how they got them off, but they definitely had them on.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Okay, Francine, then Kelly.
When's the ACRA duct tape fact?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the big symbolic gesture we make to our community, that action with impact.
Staying on the thing of housing just quickly before I go to my other questions, I would think that if we could specifically reach out to people who have CDUs, and because that would be a really great length of stay for somebody's CDU, for one of the music students, or somebody who works for the ski area for 5 months, or, you know, used to be 6, but, you know, so I think that would be a target audience, all the way down into Basalt, I think would be one way. I don't know exactly, you probably have to go through ComDev to get a list or something like that, but I would think specifically targeting those people would be great. That was just a thought I had on that. But my question was, part of your presentation was about sort of lower impact tourists, the ones who come with passion for biking or maybe just skiing, but also people who maybe come for the opera or whatever, but they're not high-end tourists. And I just can't resist saying something that I heard recently from somebody who was communicating with me, that STRs are housing for those people. So they're not going to stay at the Jerome, you know.
No.
And so I just think that's something for us to keep in mind, that if we want people who are coming here for to have a broader spectrum of tourists as well as residents, that that is one need that STRs fill for our tourist population. And then I wanted to ask you about, I think we used to call it the shoulder season. First it was the off season, and then it was the shoulder season. What is it now?
The mud season? I don't know.
Anyway, finding the balance between the stores and restaurants' needs and the other locals who just don't want that many people in town. And I noticed that you have an advertisement for the secret season. Is that spring or is that fall?
That was the spring that was like a 2015 advertisement, the secret season.
So I don't know what any solution to that is, but there's a tension there between the businesses who want tourists here and then other locals who definitely don't. I
puts
know
us-
that for me,
yeah.
when I come to town in what I call the off-season, but whatever it's called now, it's such a relief. I mean, last summer when it started kicking up, remember how insane it was? One day I spent 15 minutes just trying to find a parking place, which is, you know, bad on me. I should have taken the bus, but it is a scene. And so I just recognizing that tension that you have to deal with, and I don't have any solutions for you, but
A lot of conversations. I mean, we do represent business, and the lodging tax is coming from the hotels. Yet now we're saying we're going to bring in a low-impact visitor who could be in a tent in your bedroom or in a short-term rental. So there's some natural tension. So they have to do a little give too. And then the businesses. So one of the things that we've been talking to the marketing advisory committee that we have, which are the marketing folks. It makes up about 25 of them in our community. What is shoulder season? What is off season? Some of us think it's defined by the day the lift closes to a certain date. So we're trying to dig in. Yeah. Well, we say food and wine
what is that?
almost.
Yeah, food
like
and wine,
from
that's what I was
that.
trying to say, food and wine.
So is it that long? Is our job to extend maybe a week on both sides, but not that entire, like a whole secret season? We won't be doing the secret season. We won't be doing that spring advertising. And then in the fall, it's difficult because for 2 years there haven't been any weddings. So let me just be clear. This fall, every single weekend and weekday will be filled with brides. So, yeah, it's hard. It'll be harder in the fall to get that off season because of the demand that's currently happening. So we're looking at the whole chart and figuring out when it's low and when it's high, and then what we can affect change on. But it's a difficult place we can be in with the businesses. But I want to say, because we're talking, because we're all working together, they seem to trust that when we say we're not going to be marketing, it's going to be okay for them too.
Right.
They need to find employees. They need to get people trained. So it's worked out. And the people who stay open, boy, we promote them so
Yeah.
they stay busy. And that's good for them.
And I think important to note that even if ACRA is not running marketing to specifically promote that time period, other for-profit businesses will be promoting themselves as hotels, certainly. And so maybe ACRA's role shifts to just educational marketing targeted to people that are already in town. So instead of running a promotion in Denver to come to see Aspen, you may see, like maybe the community decides it's okay for ACRA to say, hey, uphill hikers have the right of way, by the way. Did you know that? You know, that type
That
of
kind of thing,
educational.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
Kelly, before I shift to you real quick, I've had this idea for a couple years. It's called a no event. And so that's, you pick a weekend and you let the locals know we're doing nothing this weekend. You know, so come hang out in your downtown core,
Yeah.
or hang out in your local parks, because this is your no event.
That brings up a great point, actually, that I forgot to mention, is that we did used to host the Aspen Arts Festival at the end of July, and we have decided not to move forward with that again, because there just is not a need, and it was not serving the community. So we eliminated an event. It's not a no event yet, but maybe we can work towards that.
I'll let you know my
Even
birthday
Carbondale
weekends, and we'll
has
have a
that.
no event on my birthday weekend.
Even Carbondale has events all the
It's
time.
pretty crazy.
Well,
It's
and you're
insane.
looking at like Snowmass Village, who's still building up their occupancy. So here they have millions of dollars over in Snowmass, bringing and inviting people in maybe when we're not. So if you're in Snowmass, more likely than not, you're going to contribute to the traffic and come into town and have something to eat. So having that close partnership with Snowmass too has been really advantageous for us to at least have those honest conversations. And we're also meeting with the whole marketing and sales team at the skiing company as well to say, where do we find some things in this plan that we can all really support? Kind of going back to, I think it's what Kelly or Greg said about it doesn't always have to be more. It shouldn't be more now. It can't be more.
Right.
So really recognizing that and pivoting has been a big change for our organization. And we're really happy and proud to do that. So we're residents of the community as well.
It's much harder than just trying to get people to come to us.
It is.
It's
Thank
much
you.
more nuanced.
Yeah. Thank you for understanding
Let's
that.
just be glad that we are one of the target areas for the Rainbow Festival.
Yeah.
20,000 campers. I think they're looking at Granby. But Kelly, and then we need to kind of start wrapping. But Kelly, you think you still had your hand up there?
No, I've put it down. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So, board, do you have any final questions or comments? This has been great. Thank you guys so much. I can't wait. They're going to be presenting this over at the Northwest Colorado Council of Governments Economic Development Conference Symposium.
Summit. Starts with an S. We don't know which
Just a
one.
thank you. Thank you so much.
It's been our pleasure to come in, and I hope that we can
Just want
continue.
to say thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you.
All right, I will just pose sort of two things to think about, I think, if that's okay, Patty.
Yeah, go ahead.
One, something to think about. We're having some conversations about a housing revenue source that I expect will take more shape at the BOCC level across, as the year proceeds, but we'll need more input on that. And so one of the, I think, paths to consider would be whether the lodging tax should be altered at all to apply to housing, to have a component of that go towards housing, because new legislation was just signed to allow for that. So just some food for thought. And then another thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is, we have so much pride in sort of the philanthropic community that we have and the support for all the arts and culture that we have. And I wonder if there's a way to sort of, and if ACRA has a role maybe into sort of boosting some of that philanthropy for more of the inequities and kind of social safety needs that we need. Like, wouldn't it be great if we had more contributions towards housing, or being able to house all the music festival students? Or wouldn't it be great if someone endowed a childcare facility or something like that? So I don't know, we tout so much philanthropy that really goes towards like environment and arts, and we don't see it as much in sort of these other big needs that are really coming through, I think, in some of the dissatisfaction from the community and sort of just difficulty in being able to survive and thrive. So I'll just throw that out as some food for thought, and hope to converse with you both of you ladies on those topics soon.
Thank you.
All right. Any wrap-ups?
Thank you so much
Yes,
for
the
having
best.
us.
Thanks. Good to see you.
It's nice to
that
be
was
in the new
great.
chambers.
I know, it's so nice to
Wow.
have you.
And not have a mask on, so thank you very much.
Very nice to have you, ladies. Thank you. And I'll see you in Silverthorne.
Yes.
So I think we have a
I feel like
in-person
we have a
meeting
board
between
meeting
now and
before
then.
that, so I hope to see you.
I'll see you in person.
Yes.
Are we doing that at the GAN? Where are we doing that?
Police station in the
Oh, at the
community
police
room.
station. Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Great. I think I know how to get there.
Perfect.
All right, thank you. So board, we are going to move on. Our first citizen board interview with Jeff Davis. He has decided to withdraw his application. I encourage him. He wants to be involved. And after doing a little research with Charlotte, realized that the Board of Adjustment doesn't meet as often, and he would like to be involved. So he's going to keep an eye on other committees that we might have vacancies coming up with. So we appreciate his interest and hope to see him at another time. So we're going to move to, thank you guys for being here in person. And I think the first person up here is Suzanne Caskey. And Michaela, you want her up here at this?
She can sit right in the middle here and just make sure.
She can do
that
that. Here, she can be here. I'm just gonna say,
explain things and then
Perfect.
do all of them.
Charlotte's going to give us a little intro, and then she's going to hand it back to me.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have 3 P&Z renewals, and they're all today. And Suzanne's the first one, and the board does like to renew P&Z members, interview renewing citizen P&Z members. So I believe, are you Jasmine?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got Jasmine, we've got Zach, and we've got Suzanne. And then the last interview is a new application. Jason Suazo, I believe, is his name. And so there are 2 vacancies on the P&Z board right now. 2 members just resigned recently.
That's if we keep the number at 9, though, correct?
No, I think that's, let me see.
I think
here.
it's if we keep the number at 9, then we have 2 vacancies. We'll have to clarify
1,
that.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
So I think the board was discussing going to 7.
Okay.
I thought we was
I'll let-
did and done.
Well, we can undo or do
Okay,
it
so-
again, but, yeah,
Oh, okay.
7.
Well, then we have Jason coming in.
to possibly take one of the renewals if the
Yeah.
board chooses to go in that direction.
So,
Thank you.
sorry about that.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. So Suzanne, welcome. It's so nice to see you here in person. We love seeing you. So it's about 15 minutes. I'm going to give you the first opening. You can just let the board know why you would like us to put you back on P&Z, keep you where you have done such a great job. And then I'm going to open it up to the board to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, first let me say that this is unnerving to come into a room without a mask on and just to sit down and act like I feel normal, and I don't. It is rather unnerving.
Well, let's just kind of shake it off and join us.
Yeah, I'll do that. Maybe I could sum up the mood I'm in right now, which isn't very different from the mood I've always been in, to tell you that I've started to read this book, which is Paul Anderson's new book, The Town That Said Hell No. He told us that he almost named it The Town That Said No. Then someone suggested that he get stronger and say hell no, and then he suggested one other word, and he decided not to use that one. Hearing Paul speak the other night about his book reminded me of why I'm here right now. From my beginnings in moving here. In fact, from coming here the first time on my honeymoon with Jack, and that was in '72, we turned the corner at the Hickory House to come into town. It was the first time I'd ever visited. And I suggested that immediately I was in a town that was a scale to which I could relate. I grew up in Georgia, and of course this is nothing like Georgia, except for the fact that the town at the time, its scale, what it chose to save in terms of architecture, what it valued in terms of eccentricities, made me feel at home immediately. And I suggested, before we got as far as 4th Street, I suggested to Jack that we just call Beacons and have them break in our house where we were living for a while in Dallas, which neither of us could tolerate, and just have them bring the furniture on up here. And it took us 6 or 7 more years before we had the nerve to do it and start all over again. I want to say that I get involved with the community, things that I get involved with for the community, but I know this is not all altruistic at all. It's for me and my heart and my soul, and the heart and soul of people who value the things that I do here. It is a treasure for me to be able to serve on the P&Z, and as Patty, as you know, and some other people know, I did that years ago, and I had wonderful teachers and mentors, and Bob Child and Dottie Fox and all those Peter Guy and all of those people, and that just gets into your pores, and you can't ever shake it off. So as we in town, I and all of my friends and most of your friends are complaining about the crowds and the no parking and the no affordable housing and the litany of all of those things, which are all there. I have recently gotten tired of it, just kind of tired of the whining, tired of the complaining, tired of the same old conversation all over again. And I have been trying to think of a way to approach this more positively of, can't we all meet in, say, Pepke Park or somewhere in town once a month and bring our brown bags and talk about what we enjoy, why we're still here, what we still hope for, but we are still here. And I've heard so many people, and I've read so many articles recently in which people are saying, I've given up. The last development or the last kerfluffle was, I've had it now. I've just given up. I don't want to leave, but I've given up on it, and I'm going to complain with the rest of them. I am just not there yet. I still think that we can find ways to save the things that we value. So ask me what you want to ask me.
All right, I'm going to look at the board and see who's going to be the first to come ask Susanna a wonderful question here.
I'll go.
Okay, go.
Well, thank you very much for your years of service, Suzanne, and for your dedication to Aspen. When we had a meeting about 6 weeks ago, a couple of the men on the board had indicated that they felt that their hands were tied in making some of the decisions because of the language of the land use code. And so I said, are you asking us to change some things in the land use code so that you can make different decisions? And they said yes. And I'm wondering if you're of the same mind.
When you say the board, are you talking about the P&Z or the Board of County Commissioners?
The P&Z came in a joint meeting with us. The P&Z said that they felt like their hands were tied, that they had to decide a certain way because that's what the land use code told them that they should do.
Yes.
And they wanted some changes so that they could make different decisions, and I'm wondering if you're of the same mind.
I in some areas I am, yes. What I have found in serving with this P&Z is that there are some members who feel a bit more tied to the objective letter of the law of the land use code. I have always found, and the P&Z that I served on years ago, of course the land use code was pretty new then, but it was often pointed out to me that there's a lot more subjectivity in the land use code than one might think. It's usually not just, no, you just can't build on a 30% slope, or no, you just can't do this. There are sometimes ways to interpret the land use code so that it doesn't box you in. Now that said, the new emphasis that you all have been thankfully placing on your goals of paying attention to climate change locally, not caring what they're doing in North Carolina, not caring what they're doing in Berlin, but right here, these little tiny things that we can do here that we know already can make such a big decision, a big change for us. And it's the way that we can rightly do our part in the bigger picture. I served on the growth committee that the Board of County Commissioners, when you ask for volunteers, what was that, 2 years ago, or maybe even 3 years ago now, and we were being asked questions about how can we look at, if you were the king or queen of the world, how could we look at climate change at the land use code and our growth policies through the lens of climate change. And I believe you meant it. I believe you really wanted to know. And I believe that we told you, the citizens who were involved in that. Now, I have to say, I think there were probably 90 of us, and most people didn't come most of the time. Occasionally, they would write a letter, but then when it was all said and done, and we sent our recommendations from a volunteer committee, they didn't bind you to anything, there was another group that rose up and stormed the castle here. And I can understand that's awful to have that in your face. But yes, I think that we need those kinds of changes I think we need changes in our growth policy. I think we need a new look at TDRs. I think we need to get our spirits in order again, because we are slowly selling this place off again. And I do know that people who buy second or their third or their fourth homes here, they came here for a reason. We cannot allow those people to come in and change us and then get tired of us because we're not what they came here for in the first place. We always have to look at who benefits and who pays according to our land use code. And when there are, it doesn't bother me if somebody owns a second home, has a second home somewhere, has a third hometown or a fourth hometown somewhere. But this is mine, right here where I live. This is the only chance I get. And I think we have to continue to stand up for it. If we want our rural areas or the county to be turned into a lodge district, then are you ready to zone it that way? I mean, what do you think would happen if you put that zone overlay of lodging down across the rural parts of the county or any place in the county? The first time I saw this happen was I was on the P&Z when the Prince Bandar's house was up for review. And many of us on the P&Z, and Paul Anderson, who was a reporter at the time, kept saying it's a lodge. I mean, how can you have, what was that, like 26 bedrooms and 13 bathrooms or something along those lines? That's a lodge. I mean, it looks like it, it smells like it walks like it acts like it. But that Board of County Commissioners just couldn't go that far to call it that. But what if we started calling, what if we zoned it like it is now? Could you do that? I mean, and do you think you'd get by with it in this county? Do you think, is that the kind of thing that you campaigned on? If you had campaigned on, we think every large house in the county ought to be up for sale because somebody put their money in it, I mean, up for rent all the time, and you think that that's just the way it should go, and you think that climate doesn't matter, and you think that energy embodiment doesn't matter, if you had explained that to the public and told them that you were against it, would you be here right now? No, you wouldn't, and all of you know that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.
All right, next. Okay, Steve, please, and then Greg, you want to go after Steve? Thank you.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
That's short turnaround on appointing you to a vacancy and then interviewing you again. I don't have to ask you about your viewpoints on, on development and the work the P&Z does. I know you've been somewhat frustrated that the P&Z now is different than it was on your first go around on it years ago. I do want to just ask you again about the issue, and we as the BOCC are going to have to decide because we did appoint 9, we got the P&Z up to 9 members and then 2 of them have resigned, but you indicated that the 9 was unwieldy. I want to make sure that those who are attending the meetings have the opportunity to make their viewpoints known and, have the opportunity to participate. If there are too many people trying to talk, some people don't get their turn to give their input. So could you expand on your thought on limiting it to something less than 9?
Yes, it's harder to get a quorum, for one thing. It is harder for everybody, and especially when we're Zooming, it's hard to get for everybody to have a chance to speak their mind. Some of it may be that the commission the P&Z commission that I was first on years ago, I think we had 5 regular members and maybe 2 alternates. But I understand why you all are saying that alternates, that people feel slighted if they're alternates now, and that wasn't the case years ago. Alternates always attended, always had to be informed, and could speak in any meeting. And as I saw it, when I think I started as an alternate, and I was an alternate for about 2 months, and I thought all I had to do as an alternate was convince one other person to go the way I thought it ought to go. But that's no longer a reality. But I just think nine is way too many. I mean, can you imagine now on the BOCC if you had
No,
9
I
people?
cannot imagine.
I mean, it just doesn't work.
Okay, thanks. Greg, please.
Hi, Suzanne. I'm sorry I'm not there. I came home with a cold from spring break.
I'm
trying
sorry.
to stay away from people.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm following the conversation, so I'll contribute.
Good.
But thank you for coming in. And your words
Good
resonate, and I find myself very grateful that you're on our P&Z and that you're so outspoken. It really disturbed me to have 2 people resign a couple months ago, and the frustrating part for me was that I hadn't heard from them before that. They hadn't reached out. I was just wondering how, maybe there's something about protocol between the P&Z and the BOCC official members where they don't feel able to reach out and talk to people. But I really wish they had. And I remember my last conversation with you in person. I think we were at the groundbreaking or the dedication of the solar farm.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I said, hey, I haven't heard from you. How come I haven't heard from you? Because I know you have a lot to tell me. And so I want to fix this. I want to make sure that P&Z members don't feel as if they're out in left field and that their thoughts and their time spent doesn't matter. What do you suggest we do?
Well, Greg, in the first place, it's not my impression that people left because they were upset with the Board of County Commissioners or policy directions or whatever. My impression was for one person, and I probably shouldn't speak for that person, but you've asked what I think. For one person, I think that health had something to do with it. And I think that my impression was for the short time that I was on P&Z with one particular person, is that he just was kind of feeling more and more grumpy. And often he couldn't attend because he had a hospitalization, and so I've assumed that had a lot to do with it. I don't know the present P&Z commissioners nearly as well as I knew Michael Gassman and Peter Guy and all of that group. But I don't think it has to do with something that you are doing or not doing. And maybe you didn't ask for this, but maybe what you should do in being concerned about that is contact those people personally and tell them, you miss them and you're concerned and you want to know what might have led to it, and if the board had anything to do with it. I don't think that that's the case.
Yeah.
Well, glad to hear it. How come you haven't called me?
Well, let's see. Do I have your number?
We'll make sure you get it.
I want to call all of you often, because there's so many things that that you do when I want to cheer you on, and I don't want to be always the person complaining, and as I have, of saying, okay, if you want to do these things, get on with it. I'll bring people in. I'll bring an army in who'll stand behind you. Don't just let money talk here, but let community talk loudly to you. So I'll call you more often.
You have that southern demeanor, so it never looks to me like you're complaining.
Well,
so
but
you know.
you know what a southern demeanor can. If I said something like "bless your heart," you might not think
she
a
must
southern
really
de-
be mad at me today. All right, Kelly, because then we're going to get moving here. But Suzanne, it's just so great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I love being here. I appreciate it.
All right, Kelly, the floor is yours.
Sure, thanks. And Suzanne, I've appreciated the conversations that we have been able to have on these topics, and your perspective, both current and from past conversations, has been truly informative for me. So thank you. I'm wondering, do you think there is a good balance of perspectives on the P&Z now? Is there a point of view that you think the board would benefit from that's not currently at the table? And do you guys feel as supported as you need, and to make, some of these, to have these important policy conversations?
I feel supported to do that. I feel comfortable telling you what I think about things. I'm still, especially because all of my present life with P&Z has been virtual. That's different. That, I think, has hampered my getting to know this P&Z well. And something else that I mentioned on my application, I think, is really hurting us, and that is that there's one person on P&Z who does not have the setup at home to be able to be on the video virtually. But there is a trend on the part of some members of P&Z who sign on, but they're a black box. And that is embarrassing to me for the public, because the public, they just have to guess. You might be sitting back there having a margarita or fixing your dinner. And there have been some times when the chairman has called on one of those people and there's a lag, and then called them the second time, and then that person appears. I wish that you would require that if you're on a board and if you're attending virtually, if you have the capability, the technological capability of equipment, that you must be, to be present, you must be seen. Because I think that hurts. I think that hurts us all around. I don't have a good feeling yet for where individual P&Z members stand, because I haven't had enough time. I would urge you to be more I don't know how to put it.
I'm waiting for this word.
I would ask you to put more people on who are more impudent and obstinate and who and who show the courage of their convictions and who are involved in a meeting, because there are some members also who rarely say a word. I have no idea where they stand. So
That's a case of be careful what you ask for.
Oh, oh gosh, maybe I should say.
We're gonna start watching your meetings.
Yeah,
I want
yeah.
to see what those people are wearing behind those flags.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
All right, Kelly, do you have anything else? Because we need to wrap, because we've got an audience here today. It's great. Suzanne, thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna
Much.
review the rest of the candidates. I think we have next Tuesday. We're gonna have some decision-making points. Correct. Because we want to get things moving along again. So, as always, so great.
Good, good.
see you.
Thank you for all of the work you all are doing. Of
Thank you,
course.
What was
Suzanne.
that, what was that southern statement?
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
It sort of depends on the way it's said. Oh, bless your heart. But when somebody says to you, bless your heart.
That's what Geraldine
You're all
Graham says to
done.
me a lot. I
Think of
better
Ann
watch it.
Richards.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Okay, I think we have Jasmine. Please, it's nice to see you, other than the grocery store.
Yes, indeed, that's our usual hangout.
So, again, welcome, and I'm
Thank
going to give you the first go at it. You can give the board a little position on where you stand with P&Z and why you want to stay on. We appreciate your service enormously. Having been on P&Z for many years, I know what it takes. It's not always easy. It can be long hours, but you stand in there. You've been so involved in the community, and then I'll turn it over to the board after you're finished.
Well, P&Z is always special to me because, as you probably know, I spent many years on city P&Z. But I think that the land use part of governance is really critical. And it's also, to me, the most interesting. I've always enjoyed it on city. I enjoy it on county. And I have felt somewhat stymied. I kind of agree with Suzanne about the difficulty of having Zoom meetings and the number of people. I'm guilty of being a person who is a black box when it comes to the Zoom meetings because I refuse to get a new computer when I don't really need to. And I think that it's really perhaps unfair to other people, but I feel that it's better for me to be there, even if it's just a voice, rather than not being there at all. To me, it's kind of important in a way to be the old crank. But I'm really conscious of the fact that one of the philosophies that I have to embrace is the fact that life is continually changing. The ground is shifting beneath our feet all the time, and you have to be able to adapt to those changes and do your part to see if you can make the changes go in the direction that you think is the best direction for the community, which is, of course, not easy because this community never agrees on anything. And I was just talking to somebody at my stretch class who said, no matter what happens, half the people hate it, half the people like it. What do you do? And it could be, I'm completely with you on issue A. How could you make such a stupid decision on item B? And that happens all the time. I often feel that I'm kind of stymied by the fact that I cannot persuade people to do what I want. How can they not listen to me and not agree with me? And this happens more often than I would like to believe possible, because I'm right. However, it doesn't work out that way, and the problem with the P&Z, I agree with Suzanne, there are too many people, and as you may or may not know, there are some professional talkers on that board, and it really is difficult because you get to a point where somebody has been going on for like 15 minutes, and you agree with them about most things, so, all right, I don't have to say anything. And I've been a little bit quieter than I used to be on City P&Z, and I'm starting to feel that I've been doing the community, or not the community in general, but the other members of the P&Z, people who are interested, that I've been doing them a disservice by not saying my opinions because I don't want to be repetitious. And then there are times I say, you know what, I can see that everything's going the other direction. I don't even want to open my mouth. And that's wrong. So if you decide to reappoint me, I'm going to be much more of a pest.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, who would like to start off asking? Be brave here, folks. She's going to let us know what she thinks. Kelly, please.
Hi, Jasmine. Nice
Hi.
to see you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, and I'm curious, what has surprised you about learning about the county P&Z versus, you don't have to compare the city P&Z, I guess, but just drawing on what you learned over the last couple of years. What's been a surprise or most interesting to you? And what do you think about what the BOCC's focus is on land use for the coming year?
It seems to me that more so than in the city, and this could be just a current thing, that it seems to me that a lot of the P&Z members are almost, I can't say opposed to the BOCC, but there's been a lot of stuff that's been being bounced back and forth. You know, BOCC gives a kind of a direction, P&Z doesn't like that direction, and P&Z comes back with their own thing. But there seems to be much more of a us and them attitude, and that could be just my impression that I didn't feel on city. Although there were always people who felt kind of the way I do. I gave you my opinion and you don't agree with me, so you must be wrong. And how could they, we've gone through all this stuff, we've discussed this issue, we've given them our recommendations, and they come out the opposite way. What's wrong with these people? And there does tend to be that kind of difference between the appointed opinion givers who are representing only themselves as opposed to elected officials who are supposed to be representing a constituency or various constituencies to the best of their ability. So I think I just got that impression, and I could be wrong, but I do kind of feel that there's a little bit of opposition on the part of P&Z to the BOCC directions.
Good to hear. Okay, Steve or Francie or Greg?
Well, I'm happy to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too.
And thank you very much for your service, and I'm really enjoying the way in which you express yourself. And I don't have a question for you, but I'm really enjoying listening to you.
Thank you.
Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Jasmine. Thank you. And you've got to give me some information here, because did you arrive in town sometime in the mid or early 70s with Arabella?
Yes, she was my
You
roommate.
were friends with it. Right.
And you
okay.
lived right down the street from us.
On Water Street.
Yes.
Right. I just remember you back then. So it's so great to see you and to be here with you today. And
Your brother bought my old
Francie.
car.
I appreciate so much the way how frank you are, and your vow to be more outspoken. I think that's great, and we could all be more outspoken. I'll take the vow as well. But thank you. I think I've heard what I wanted to hear. Just in that, wasn't quite sure how you were working with the P&Z, and it's interesting to hear your observations. I don't really have anything else to add, but thank you for being here, and I hope you can keep going for a while.
Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Steve, please.
Likewise, thank you for serving on the P&Z. The P&Z members, to me, are really the unsung heroes of the community, because that board has to do so much work looking at big packets and thinking about really important issues, and not getting nearly enough recognition for the work they do. So I being a quiet person who is oftentimes the last one to speak on things, kind of understand your reticence sometimes to speak on something where you feel that all the conversation is going one direction and you have an opposing viewpoint, but it's like, well, what's the point? I'm not going to convince anybody to change their vote the other way. But I think it's critically important that you do express yourself. And let me tell a little story just to illustrate that. I've heard of a board where one of the members was an elderly Navajo man, and he would just sit during the meetings and hardly ever say anything. He would just sit, and he was a very good listener. He would sit and listen, but then not express himself very much. And on one important issue that the committee was talking about, the whole discussion was going in a certain direction. And then at the end, he spoke, and he said, he provided an opposing viewpoint to what the others had been expressing. and he explained his reasons why he felt that way. And they ended up all switching to his viewpoint because they hadn't thought of his viewpoint in all of their discussion. And so just him presenting that, a different way of thinking on that one issue was enough to convince the others this is really something important that we had not thought of that, and they appreciated him, bringing that viewpoint up. So you never know when you present an opposing viewpoint what the effect will be. You might not change the board that time, their vote on something, but you, on the other hand, you might, as that case illustrates. So I think it's important to participate. If there's any way that you can be at the meetings in person, just go to the meetings in person, and even if you feel like you should wear a mask or whatever, I think to have your face there is important for the public and important for the other board members to be, even if they're just looking at your face and you're not saying anything, they know you're there. You're more present if you're not a black screen or something, but your face is actually there. So I urge you to try to solve that issue. And I certainly hope that as time goes on, we have more and more people there in person all the time at our various meetings. So I don't know, you don't have to respond to any of that, but I just wanted to put in my 2 bits on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, Jeff, do you have anything else you would like to share? Do you have questions for us, or?
Greg is.
Not really.
Oh,
He's waving.
who's waving?
Greg.
Patty,
Oh, Greg. I'm looking at my thing and there's no hands up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I couldn't figure out. Sorry about that. I was just going to say, I don't know if there's any way we could help Jasmine, but it seems to me that it'd be important that people on a board as important as P&Z would have the tools they need. And I'm just wondering if the county can help her with an iPad or something while she's on the P&Z. I don't know if that would be the solution. If you have Wi-Fi where you're living, then maybe it would. But maybe that's the sort of thing that we should consider providing for an important asset. Because I agree that you need to be connected.
Well,
I don't know if there's an answer for that right now. Don't expect one, but something to think about.
Suzanne Wolf is sitting in the room and she's shaking her head, and I'm sure the two of them will be getting together.
Well, I think there's going to be more in-person availability now, but I do have to say, the city gave me an iPad when I was on City P&Z, so there.
Did you ask?
They also gave us snacks. Kelly, you may
So
remember,
there.
We
they
used to
fed
have
us as well.
sandwiches, right, Suzanne? We used to get dinner on P&Z.
Yeah, I mean, there's a definite difference between the City P&Z and the way they treat us.
Because they have all that money.
They have all that
Our
money,
taxpayer
they would
dollars.
give us food and everything.
I think we're going to hear about that one too, Suzanne.
Did you
So-
ask for an iPad or a computer?
No,
Well, try that.
I don't think it's going to be necessary, because I think from
It's gonna
now
be in
on,
the
we'll be
room in
able to be in
person.
person. And
We
and
can't wait.
I don't live far away, so it's not a big deal for me to get here. So I think that problem will kind of solve itself. But it's a great suggestion, and it's nice of you to think of doing that, Greg.
Do you live in the city?
Yeah.
And I'm all for
Close
snacks
to the
too,
grocery
for the
store.
record.
See? I'm glad I got interviewed. Maybe we'll all get fed now.
All right, thank you. So good to see you. All right, Zach, you got a tough one to follow here between Suzanne and Jasmine.
See what I can do.
So nice to see you here in person.
Hi, Zach.
Hi, how good to see you again.
Good to see you. It's been many years.
I know.
All right, so the same spiel. You get the opening comments, and then welcome.
Well,
It's so, again, nice to see you, and thank you, really thank you for your service on P&Z.
thank you.
As we've said over and over again, you guys are fundamental in helping us with decision-making on land use, which is not always easy. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, so I've been on the board now. I had to look back through my emails and see the first, what year it was, the first year I got my email, like the first email I got from Suzanne, and it was 2016, so I've been on the board for a bit now. And I've seen a lot of different changes, and a lot of different members come and go, and it took me a couple years to sort of I feel like I'm now just sort of getting the feel for it and getting my feet underneath me. And definitely the first couple of years on the board, I have to say there was a lot of stuff that was frustrating, and there was definitely a learning curve. And I had to sort of unlearn. I kept trying to look at every issue that was in front of me from a 30,000 foot view, like, which is your job, which is really like the task of the BOCC. And it took me a while to figure out that I wasn't looking at projects from a 30,000 foot view, that planning and zoning is to look at the details, and it's to look at it under a microscope. And then we look at it at this scale and pass our information on to you so that you can look at it from a 30,000 foot view and see the whole project. So I feel like for a while there, I kept commenting on projects, whether it be Pandora's or the solar project or a GMQS review, on how I felt about it from the entirety of the application or project, when that wasn't the scope that I was given. So I feel like I'm getting a lot better at that, at looking at it under what the parameters of the planning and zoning board is, what we're supposed to look at, not the whole project in its entirety or the large scope of it, and sort of basically having a better feel of how to look through the packet and look at the project. But definitely a changing point for me was the solar project. And my wife and I, we go cross-country skiing all the time, and now they groom Rio Grande Trail. They started grooming Rio Grande Trail, the whole entire thing, for cross-country ski all the way. Whoever with the trails department made that decision. It's really nice. But this winter, I found myself constantly going up and down that trail with my wife to keep pointing out the solar panel project with her, because I was extremely proud of it. And I feel like that was something that, after a couple years of not seeing the hard work that we do, not seeing any results, and having that, I was, every time I go by or drive by and look at it, I'm always very proud of it. So, yeah.
Good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Good to hear you're out there on those trails.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I do, because I've still got voices coming from my iPad, so I have to turn it off, or you're going to hear everything that's coming from my iPad. So let me see which member of the board would like to start off. Kelly, please. Thanks, Zach.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your continuing interest in serving. And gosh, so much to learn. I guess I'm wondering, what is your least favorite part of being on P&Z?
Wow, my least favorite part of being on P&Z these days, well, I guess I was on the board originally when we had 7 members, and then we went to 9, which makes it a lot harder to get a quorum. And so just the putting together a meeting and who's going to be there and who's not going to be there, and when it's, it's the scheduling is basically the hardest part right now. Yeah.
It's not the lack of food.
No,
Snacks.
I'm good with that. I bring my own snacks.
Jasmine,
yeah.
leave.
Yep.
Okay, who would like to? Yeah, Steve, please. Thank you.
So Zach, you got involved in this county politics because you were on the other end of the camera running the grassroots feed. And now that you've been involved in the P&Z for a few years and you've looked at stuff, you probably got used to looking at the 30,000 foot view, just listening to us in our meetings. But now that you've had your feet wet for a few years, what lessons learned do you have from having been an observer going through, and you were there quite a long time, as I recall, working for Grassroots. What changes do you see? How have you changed on your viewpoint? What's your take on that?
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, no, I like everyone in the Valley. I've had like 15 different jobs, so, and I appreciated that time. It was really helpful. I learned a lot from that, especially just seeing a lot of issues that I just assumed were so cut and dry, and then seeing how complex that where I just thought, oh, this will be so easy, and then you have public comment and you have people commenting, and you're like, who could be against this or who could be for this? It was always so shocking. Issues that I thought were so simple, to see the different takes that I never would have guessed. Yeah.
He also got really good at working around that pole, that beam that was in the middle
that's
of the
right.
room.
That was terrible.
Very creative when it came to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who would like to go next?
I'll go.
Please.
Well, it's so nice to see you again. Your family's well?
Yeah, everybody's good. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great. Didn't know all the things you've done since I last saw you. I guess I would ask you, Zach, have you learned a couple of things that you might like to see be different in the land use code as you move on with P&Z?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I definitely found I have a lot of issues with the GMQS system, and I feel like I don't want to call them loopholes, but I constantly saw, not constantly, a lot of projects came across our bow that perplexed me, and I think the system is overly complicated, and I think it could be refined. And there was some issues or some applications, the way that the points are awarded. Patty will appreciate this. As a fly fisherman, I always there was some applications we had that were granted points for fishing easements in like Snowmass Creek or in an area that living here you could drive by for 50 years and never see anyone fishing there. But they were allocated points for that, for giving access to a fishing easement in a creek that no one ever wants to fish in, and that frustrated me. Well, it's like if a tree falls in a forest and no one's around kind of a thing. The way the system is set up, it can be navigated, and the points can be awarded based on things that are very arbitrary, and it's not staff's fault that they're going by the rules. Those points are allocated for, let's just say, a trail running through a piece of property or easement for a trail that we all know no one is ever going to use, or a fishing easement no one can even access on the other side of a creek that no one wants to fish. If you want to give me an application that has like a fishing easement like on the Roaring Fork in Snowmass Canyon, like, then we're talking, and then that's a community asset, or a trail that connects to another trail, or whether the fire department, needs something, and they come in and they say, hey, we need these four-wheelers, not just like giving them four-wheelers, and then I know you talk to the guys there and they're like, we don't need any, we have 8 side-by-sides now. Like, we don't even know where to put them anymore. And so that system has become, I don't want to say frustrating, but those are the rules. And so the applicants play by the rules right now, and they're awarded points, and we have to grant them based on those parameters. We just need to work together to change them.
So GMQS is too lenient.
It's not too lenient. I think it's just too complicated. I think I think it can be cleaned up really easily.
Let's hope so.
Well, I should take that back. That's like bless her heart. Like, it's got multiple meanings. It's it's going to be extremely hard to clean it up, because there's a lot of people who like it the way it is because it works for
them.
a certain applicant, and it doesn't work for everybody. And there are applications for locals who have, I haven't seen, and every time we have this argument, and every time we talk about refining the GMQS system, there's people on the board who always bring up, oh, well, we have to think about like the local that's been here forever, that has a house on Snow Bunny and just wants to add a garage or some, like, add a small extra square footage or something like that. I've never seen that application. Like, I've never seen one. You know what I mean? It's like it's a red herring, I guess, right? I mean, it's a thing that in 6 years, I've only seen applications for very large second homes in areas that we all know where they're going. And so that argument just keeps falling on my deaf ears, because until I actually see somebody where I'm like, oh, I recognize this name. Oh, I know them. I've known them forever. Oh, they just want, and they're utilizing the GMQS system for a small amount of square footage. I haven't seen one. So,
Would you like to see a cap on house size?
yeah, and I'd like to see I think the TDR system, I know we've talked about this before, but I think there's an opportunity out there now to fractionalize the TDR system. And I think there's a lot, I mean, that system has had so much success. If you just look at the amount of mining claims on the backside of Aspen Mountain where the development's rights have been extinguished, and how many cabins there could be there. And whenever I ski back there or tour back there, and I look and I know who had the mine, and I go, man, this whole thing could be just cabins, like a whole little community. And it's not, and it's a success. But I think that you guys are going to start seeing applications that are where you're going to be put in a position where you're like, does this really deserve a TDR?
We're already there.
Yeah, you're already there. But wouldn't you like the opportunity to be like, you get a quarter TDR, beat it, right? Be like, this doesn't cut it. Like, have a quarter TDR, and that's what we think this application deserves, because the lot is undersized. Maybe you have issues with easement, with access. Maybe it doesn't deserve a whole TDR. And I think that it's something that you guys could, I think it would be a really good club in your bag.
So just so you know, those fishing easements, I scramble down those hillsides just to go down there.
I'm glad somebody does.
I am determined.
Yeah.
That people know that we're calling them recreation easements now. Because I don't always have a fly rod with me.
Well,
so.
there you go.
Yeah. Greg, did you have anything you wanted to ask to Zach here?
Zach, thank you. I just want to say thank you. It's really enlightening, and I really appreciate your frankness. And I find myself thinking about everything you're saying and really appreciating what you're saying. And as you've noticed, and as people always notice, that the devil is in the details. Everybody's circumstance is somewhat different. I'm just wondering, is there room for more discretion in the GFQS program? Would you, just like the fractional TDR concept, is there, would you prefer to be able to strike out certain GMQS, things like the unnecessary fishing easement? Is that something that you can do or would like to be able to do, or we should be able to do?
Yeah, Greg, that's a good question. I think if staff had more flexibility, we had more flexibility, we could give that. It just goes down the line, where if there's some items, and a lot of stuff we don't, there's a lot of stuff staff's recommended scoring is fine, and we don't score it ourselves. But I think that if we had a lot more discretion with the scoring, and a lot of stuff, there's a lot of projects like that we see with the GMQS where I'd love to meet with open space and trails and ask them, right, face to face, is this what you guys, does this work for you? you know, the only other board we ever meet with is you guys. And so that's something that, yeah, I think more flexibility would help make better decisions.
Right. Thanks, Zach. Anyone else here have any further questions or comments for Zach? Zach, do you have any questions or comments for us?
No, good. Yeah,
it's good to see you.
Good luck. Good to see you guys. Good to see you.
Zach, I
Thank you.
appreciate your candor. I appreciate your candor. I want to spend time with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. See ya.
Cheers.
I like the hours and hours and hours Zach and I used to spend across the room from each other. Okay, so now we have Jason, and I have no idea how to pronounce your last name, but welcome. Suazo?
Yeah.
Beautiful name. What is it?
Spanish.
Oh, it's beautiful. So you are applying for the first application for the P&Z. Welcome. We're really happy to see you, and thank you for taking the time and energy and effort to apply for this board.
Thanks for
And
having me.
same thing, I'll turn it over to you, and you can do some introductory remarks to the board, and then we'll let the board loose and have them ask you some questions.
Sure. I've lived in the valley, in the county, for 12 years. I'm very green to this. I've never applied for a board position. I know minimal about this, but I know it's probably the most important thing in the valley. I'm super interested in the land use code. I want to learn more about it. I actually want to learn everything about it. I guess my expertise is I work for these wealthy people that build these monster houses, so I kind of understand not where they're coming from, but how it works. And I think I bring something to the table with that maybe you don't always get to see and hear from and know about. That's generally all.
Right, great. Well, again, thank you. It's time consuming. They meet, how often now, Suzanne, are they meeting? Twice a month? And the packets can be this big or they can be this big.
Sure.
So sometimes it's a lot of reading and sometimes you're wondering where the rest of the packet is. But again, welcome here. So I'm going to turn it to the board. Any member of the boards want to kick this off?
Yeah, I have a
Chrissy,
question.
please.
Please.
So you're in the construction business?
Property management business.
Oh, property management.
But I just work for one family at a time kind of thing. So
I
I don't
see.
have multiple clients. I'm intimate with one client at a time.
Mhm. So do you have any particular agenda in terms of being on P&Z or vision?
I'm really interested in like mitigation, construction. I'm mostly interested in like maintenance of these. It's easy to see the on a packet, a large packet, but then to implement that and keep it viable and moving along to the standards it does and what that takes and how that impacts the community. And
You mean
that's-
during the development stage?
no, after that.
Oh, after. Okay,
Like
yeah.
long-term thinking.
Oh,
That's
yeah, okay,
kind
I
of
see what
my
you mean.
specialty is to maintain these places and keep them. So
Okay.
I would like to implement that knowledge into the land use code.
And it was partially in terms of what the ongoing needs and costs are, that kind of, and how to meet those? Is that what you mean?
No, what it takes to do that and what impacts it has on the county. The
Yeah,
land-
that's what I meant by cost,
Yeah.
was sort of the impacts,
Yeah, the landfill, the housing,
Right.
the commute, the labor force, it's
Mhm.
all,
Mhm.
getting stretched thin, my agenda.
Yeah, I know quite a few people who have similar type of jobs. And some of their observations are pretty interesting.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, Steve, Kelly, please. And then Steve.
Hi, Jason. Thanks for throwing your hat in the ring. I think it's always a brave thing to dive into these
Right.
forays. I'm wondering, so have you, I guess three things maybe. So have you helped any of the clients that you serve kind of shepherd through a land use application, either by working with their planners or architects or anything that.
No, it's
Is what-
impossible. It's impossibly complex. You hire someone to do that.
Right. I wasn't sure if you were helping, even just with tours and access to the site and,
Of course,
managing.
of course, all of that, but it's impossibly complex.
Yeah.
So you have to
And then do you,
hire somebody.
some of the conversations we're having are related to maximum house size and demolition of homes, and I guess scrape and replace. What do you have any thoughts about those two topics?
Yeah, I mean it's ridiculous, and the mitigation for housing is ridiculously low. I mean, I'm thinking it's 5 to 10 employees per scrape for 27 years, and I don't even know your mitigation in the county. I believe the city it's like 0.6 or something like that. So yeah, that's generally my agenda, is to increase that. There needs to be way more penalties for scrape and replace, because that's the trend.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Steve, please.
So Jason, I was going to ask a similar question to what Kelly asked about have you participated in a building project with any of your clients, but I could change that question a little bit. That have you observed projects that neighbors were doing or that impacted the neighborhood of where your clients were, that you really saw the impacts of development? You probably developed opinions about development and growth issues in our county just based on what you have observed and what you have heard from friends and read in the paper. So do you have any general opinions about what level of growth we have, what the quality of versus quantity of growth, those types of issues?
I'm not sure if I have an opinion on the quantity of growth. I've definitely seen, I don't know if that's my place to say in this forum. I mean, we all know people. I know these people that only do land use plans. I know all of the community ComDev people on the city. I've seen these projects. I've worked in the biggest of big projects. So I think I understand what it is and the impact, and it's running rampant right now. These projects take over wherever they are. That's my 2 cents. I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry.
Thanks. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. It's really interesting to hear. You intrigued me from the start. You kind of alluded that you have insight that others don't really have, and I think it would be interesting to hear more about that. But I think what I also hear was some of your insight was about what happens after the project is built and it's being managed by people like you, how things change. And I know we've got an emphasis on climate here. We've got a climate action plan and a commitment to carbon mitigation, and you just have to assume all of our houses are constantly changing and dynamic in many ways as they crumble or crack as they slide down the hill, or just how people use them. And I'd love to understand and hear what your thoughts were about, how do we actually aspire to meet climate goals if we only look at it once when the house is constructed and built, approved and constructed, and then after that we never really know what happens. And I'm just wondering if you have insight, if you've been managing these places after they've been built. Do you see them becoming more or less efficient?
Probably always less because they're always growing and becoming more complex. I think I would say a couple things like you have to remember all these crumbling things create jobs to keep them from crumbling. So that's probably a good thing, generally speaking. And then two, have you ever seen a power bill from one of these places? Maybe, you know, yeah, exactly. Like that's probably where you could start if you want my opinion on creating a disincentive. Like so many of them are turned up to 72 degrees for all year for nothing, for no one to be there. I don't know if that's necessary. The snow melt's always on when no one's there. There's
The
heat
lights are on,
tapes
but
always
nobody's
on.
home, kind of a.
Yeah. So I think that's my, what I bring to the table is I understand how these people, how they use it, how energy is being wasted. You know, I take great pride in turning everything down. I wear a jacket inside because it's cool, you know. Why? It's just me.
Yeah.
10,000 square foot house for me. I can be a little chilly.
Yeah. And
Right. Interesting. That's an interesting perspective. I thank you for that.
So our plan now will be on Tuesday. The board has set aside some time. We have a couple of different boards and, oh, I'm on. Yeah. So we will have time for discussion, and then we have some other boards and other appointments so we're looking at. And then somebody from staff will get back to you and let you know what the board's final decision are. But again, thank you. Wasn't as hard to come before us as you might have anticipated. We're usually a pretty friendly group here, so we do appreciate.
All two of us.
Yeah, all two of us.
All right, and welcome my wife next month when she starts as the communications manager.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, we will. Will she be upstairs with us? So she'll be on the third floor, so hopefully we'll get to see you more. Thank you. That's exciting. Thank you very much. Okay, bringing it back to the board, we now have on our agenda, review of future agenda calendars. Thank you, Suzanne. Do we have anything
Patty, I
else?
need a couple-minute break.
That's what I was
I can
going to say. 5 minutes?
duck out and come back.
Okay, well, let's take 10 and then we won't take our break at 3:15. Okay?
Thank you.
See you in a bit.
Welcome back. This is Tuesday, April the 5th. This is the Board of County Commissioners. This is our work session afternoon. And next on our agenda is board review of future agenda calendars. And Phyllis had one item, which is the same that I had. It's just checking with the board to see, I'm going to bring this up under calendars, to see if anybody is going to attend the Senior Center Volunteer Luncheon, which is on April the 21st. Is anyone of the board planning to go? Because we need to know if we need to notice.
The 21st, I just looked at that.
I'll try to go.
Okay?
That is, I'll be at the core board meeting until 11:30.
And this
And
is 11:30
this
to
is
1 at the
11:30 to 1.
senior center.
The core board meeting is probably down Valley, but I'm not positive where it is. Let me see if I can find out.
Greg, so you'll be at core. Steve, are you going to attend the senior lunch?
I believe that I can. I'm just looking. I don't have any conflicts on my calendar right then.
Why don't we
I
go ahead?
hadn't really looked yet to see, but it looks good for me to go.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and have it noticed. And then Kelly, you and Steve and I, they've given us 10 minutes to talk, which is a lot of time. So maybe the three of us can get together and we'll come up with comments that each of us can make. How's that? And then
Okay.
Greg and Francie, if something comes up and you guys, it'll be noticed, so we'll be good.
Greg, are all our meetings Zoom now?
For core,
Yeah.
they're Zoom optional.
Because it just says a Zoom meeting. Where would the in-person meeting be?
The core office out at the ABC.
So, okay.
Okay, so does anybody else on the board have any future agenda issues? Steve, please.
I don't know for sure yet on the I think it's May 2nd meeting. It's a work session. It's May 3rd. I might not be here. We have been invited to go on a raft trip on the San Juan River. And it's like, we haven't figured it out yet whether we're actually doing it, but we're inclined to go because that's a rare opportunity to get on a river trip like that.
Would you just let Charlotte know your possible dates so that she can tentatively put it on a schedule then? That would be great.
Yeah, it would be May 3rd would be the date that
Okay.
that I would miss.
Okay.
And it's not totally confirmed yet that we are going. The river trip is happening. We think we are going to be on it, so
Okay.
it would be May 3rd I would miss.
Okay, because I'm probably going to be gone maybe around the 20th that week, that full week of May,
May.
for my mom's funeral service.
I'll be gone the 27th of April, which is a regular meeting at the Wolf meeting.
So, and then you're going to miss the EOTC meeting also, or?
No, I'm going to Zoom into the EOTC because the Wolves are over for half of it, because it's at 12:15. I'll probably leave the Wolf meeting at 2. It's usually over at 3 and come in for the last part of the EOTC.
Okay, and then you're going to miss the regular meeting?
The regular meeting, I'll be here for the work session.
Okay,
It's in Meeker this time.
okay. So just let Charlotte know that too. Charlotte usually watches this and gets it, but, yeah, because she's trying to keep up with the board, especially if we have vacation time coming up.
I think I told her already.
Yeah, so we can look at what we're scheduling out, so we don't have huge agenda items on those meetings when we don't have a full board. Okay, that is finito. So we're gonna go, since we have Sam here. Sam, I'm gonna, Kelly, please.
Patty, when you meet for your agenda meeting this week, can you confirm? I thought that our conversation about the jail on the 12th was also going to bring in aspects of the mental health assessment, community assessment. But I don't see it listed like that on the agenda.
So Phyllis, Phyllis is making a note right now. Thanks, Kelly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Patty, I may be able to address, I think that's the following week. Kelly, we're bringing that to the board. It should be, I believe, on future calendars, it should be listed there.
So it would be not the 12th, but the following?
I believe so. It was a matter of trying to get those timed up, and that's, I think, whenever that one fell in, Kelly.
Okay, I thought we were gonna try to pair them because they're.
Yeah, and there
Start to
was
cross over.
some reason we couldn't put those two together.
Okay.
So we were gonna go right on the heels of it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's on there at 1 o'clock, Kelly, on the 19th.
The 19th?
Mm-hmm.
And
You got it? Yeah.
I have one more thing.
Yeah, Francie?
The retreat, I haven't seen anything on it for quite a while.
The retreat is scheduled, that it's on our agendas for
the 15th.
Friday, April 15th, from 9 to 3 downstairs in the Mine Chef meeting room,
Mine Chef?
downstairs.
In
Before-
this building?
Yep,
I've never been in there.
that's where the election stuff usually is.
Oh.
Yeah. So Sam, do you mind, I have some people here in the audience, would you mind if I let them go first, or do you have a pressing engagement? Okay, thanks, Sam. All right. It's Jody and Company.
Am I on? Okay, lights on. Jody Smith, Facilities Director, and I am here today with FCI, Brian Young and Mike McLean, to give you a brief update on the courthouse renovation work and some changes that have happened, and it's going to be a budget request. So just to high level, we are in phase 3. We just started about a month ago, starting off with our successful transition of the 9th Judicial and courthouse staff over to the Armory. They actually are doing jury selection today. Over 50 people over there, and they're having trials set up. The exterior stairway has been placed on the back of the building, so that's on. We've done our demolition of the second floor, and our abatement is complete. We have one little small space that we have to come in and re-abate since we moved the jury boxes off of those, so, but that'll be done. And then our pretrial area and Alpine Legal Services, all of those spaces are all framed out and ready. So kind of, we've already really hit the ground running thanks to FCI and their expertise in this. What has also happened is that we've been working with the design of the district courtroom and the county courtroom, and some other things have changed as we started to remove through all of this. Our original scope did not include modifying any of the district courtroom. We were going to add a lift, and that was it. And it has turned out that due to the technology that they need for their services, we ended up having to do the whole dais and the whole clerk recorder, TVs. We had to move things back, and I'll be presenting this in more detail at a later time. But what that has caused, so the district courtroom, same with the county courtroom, we've had to modify a lot of things for the technology that they need to do their work. The court security office has also requested, and we changed and added a detention holding cell upstairs so that the detainees or people waiting for court had a place to be held upstairs and with a place to go to the restroom so that they're not using the public restroom in the hallway or the judge's restrooms. So that was a pretty significant change. We also, the floors in the bathroom ended up being bad, very small amount of money, but we thought it was the right thing to change that tile floor to match everything else. The low volt is coming in really high. That's the technology wiring. You know, again, with the courtroom, the district courtroom, we hadn't even planned on doing the flooring, so we are having to do all new carpet. So those changes come up to about $150,000 in additional fees, and that's also the design fees. So we're encapsulating all of that. The other changes that have happened in this is that the board approved for us to have the roof replaced during this wonderful time of having the building vacant. That bid has come in $100,000 over budget.
Of course it has.
It's the materials, right, and the scaffolding that they're going to be required to get up there. So we're planning to come to the board with a $250,000 ask for additional funds. And so I want to give you some other highlights on this, but that's our intent, and then I'll ask you how you want me to do that. We do still have contingency funds. We're a little nervous about dipping into those at this point because we're so early in on the project. We still don't know what the actual tear off of the roof and what kind of damage or the flashing or any, we don't know what they're going to hit, and that's not in the bid, and it's not in the $250,000 ask. But we have contingency to cover it, so we don't believe we'll be coming back to you again. The snow melt, let's see, there's this corner of the courthouse right over the detention corridor where they're bringing detainees from the jail into the courts. There's a big icicle that hangs off every time there, so we've asked them to go ahead and address that. We believe, again, we can cover that with contingency. It's not part of the 250. We have a healthy contingency is what I'm saying. And there's potential that we would still return that back to the board at the end of the project at some amount. But we just don't know. We have too many unknowns. The spire still needs to have some repairs. The fire lane, we still don't have our materials on that, so we don't know what they're coming in at, but we believe we can do that. And then also the exterior doors, I don't know if you've seen them out there, but the exterior doors, we spec'd those to be wood per the historic preservation, and we made them look like original. But what we're finding is those exterior doors are warping horribly. They're hard to lock, they're not doing their job. So we're looking at, and we'll be working with Historic about changing those to a synthetic door. So they'll look exactly the same, but they won't warp and change. And we did this at the library many years ago where we said, let's just deal with the wood and let it warp and stuff. And we chose not to do the synthetic, and we've just had problems with them forever. So we think that that's the right thing to do. But again, we haven't determined all of that yet, but we believe we can absorb that in the contingency. So we're really asking for additional funding for the roof and the courtrooms upstairs for the changes that have happened. I did want to just give you a quick plus on some of the great things we've done, which is the court's collaboration on the design. I think they're very happy. We are still working very diligently to make it look and feel like the historic courthouse, even though we're changing things. So using some of the historic furniture, we're still working on all of that plan, but that's where we're at.
How do you fix a hanging icicle? Heat tape?
Yeah, heat tape and probably a or a snow fence.
I'm sorry, I was just
or
dying of
gutter.
curiosity.
It's historic.
Again, we're really trying to.
The icicle is historic.
Yeah, right.
We're really trying to modernize the technology for the courts in a historic building. It's really challenging, but we're trying to get rid of all that wire molding and get it where it needs to be so that they can do the job they need to do. And then one of my last bonuses that I wanted to talk about, just high level, and again, this is all part of the project and not part of the ask for new money, is we did swap our gas boiler to electric, knowing that that is the board's direction. So that was a win for us. So just wanted to make sure that, you know, some of the things that we're doing here. The $250,000 ask, we can bring that to a formal process in the budget supplemental for June 7th, or I can bring it to you earlier if you wish, but time is kind of critical for us to keep going and maintain our schedule for making sure we can get those contracts for the roof and some of the other work.
So I have a question. If we have a contingency fund, this seems like a contingency fund issue. Why aren't we just taking it out of the contingency fund now rather than out of the general fund?
We could do that. Being only a month into, or a few weeks into the job, we'll end up zapping that right away, and we'll be back. I mean, we can do that. We were thinking that we want to make sure that we can cover the costs. So we have $230,000 in contingency, and we're asking for $250,000, so we'll still be short. And that then will not cover the other things that we don't know about yet.
I would rather see us fund this and then have the little things not come to us one at a time. later
I'm
in
just
the
concerned
project.
about $250,000 added on to an already high budget
Yeah,
that
right.
comes out
Oh,
of
I
our
get
general
that,
fund.
but I just know,
I-
let's,
It's just
we'll
getting
get
hard. We
20,000
just
here
keep
and
sucking
50,000.
money out of our general fund and, yeah.
And the
that's a tough
capital
one.
fund does have the money to cover this expenditure in the interim until that budget supplemental is approved, if you wish. So,
Does the board have any position on this? Greg, please?
Yeah, thanks. Jody, thank you for that. Thanks for the heads up. I'm assuming we're going to see some detail on this, just to know, to give us a sense of what's being done and how necessary it is, and, kind of get the impression here. But I know you'll be coming back to us, but I would just support having more detail in advance so we really understand it.
and so my intent is in the budget supplemental in June, I would have a spreadsheet, breakouts. I can insert a floor plan, so you can actually see what it is that you're funding for this ask, if you wish. Or I could bring it earlier in a work session, if you wish.
Great, and then also just while you're at it, toss in whatever the alternative is, so we understand what the options are, if there are any.
Well, the alternative would be, I can do that. It would be using our contingency up, basically, and then coming back if we run into more things, I think.
I think Francie has a good point. If we're gonna, this is a big sum, and then I just have a problem with this. And the cost of construction is, it's out of our control. The cost of materials are out of our control, and it makes you take a deep breath.
Well, what I would say is, when we came back for phase 3 and phase 3 funding, we did not know how deep this courtroom, the district courtroom, was going to go. I mean, we really did not plan on doing a whole lot, so we budgeted $20,000, and it came up to $150,000. Again, this is kind of our one shot to do it and do it right, and not be in here all the time. And that's why, the flooring, I went ahead and did the bathroom floors. Just they were breaking anyway. But and then same with the roof. We budgeted $300,000, and it came in $100,000 more. And that's, we could descope and not do the shingles of the roof, but we would be here later.
Hindsight, 20,000 versus 150,000, and we knew we were gonna, it's an old building, we're always gonna find stuff.
Yeah.
It would have been great if we had budgeted up here and, had money at the end of the day, but, we gotta do what we gotta do in that building. It's just another hard one. I think we should stay over at the Armory and let the city move into the courthouse and let them, I'm kidding. Kidding. All right, Kelly, and then, still Steve, and then Kelly, I believe.
Is there any possibility that we could get some ARPA money? This basically is a shovel-ready project that we're already working on it, and maybe there's a possibility of getting a last-minute grant for the $250,000.
Phyllis?
Steve, this wouldn't be appropriate for ARPA dollars. There may be other grants out there, but that's not going to be fast typically, applying for a grant and getting awarded. I don't know of funding that's available right now. I'm guessing we already have tapped DOLA for some of this?
DOLA didn't fit any of our
Gotcha.
criteria in this.
No historic preservation grants.
Didn't fit our timelines, and because we already designed and in the shovel project started.
Yeah, we should have thought of that one ahead, but, okay. Steve, are you done? And then I'll turn to Kelly. Okay,
I want to
Kelly?
be clear. Thanks. I just want to be clear, following up on what Greg said, because, you know, it sounds like the request here is to approve the funding, and so any presentation later is just detail.
Right.
We're not, so Jody can move forward with the schedule and contracts and things like that. So I just wasn't sure if that was clear to everybody. You know, I'd be happy to hear more detail about the courthouse, but it's not gonna, if we're not gonna make a decision today, then that information will be helpful, but the request is to make that decision today on it.
Well, technically, it comes back to us for supplemental, and we could say, no, it's supplemental. I would like to see it come back sooner than June, just in case the board has issues with looking at the final details. If that's possible. Phyllis?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine to wait to June because it sounds like there's money already that can go towards this, and we are just backfilling it as opposed to having Connie do the work of an out of period supplemental, but that's just procedural. Yeah, Jody, I mean, you know, we took on this project and this is our reality, unfortunately, and that roof to me is a priority in the project. So I'm not surprised it came in so high.
Yeah, just,
Wait, let Phyllis had to.
Well, just we should check on the appropriations if they're using the contingency and then it comes back to you in June, you decide to not fund it, then they don't have contingency, or should it advance?
No, we're saying leave the contingency
Earlier.
where it is. And then at the end of the project, if there's money contingency, then it'll come back into capital or the general
Oh,
fund.
absolutely. We would
So,
return
yeah,
it if this
so
is.
then it comes back, but for now, because it's a large lump sum, let's take it there from another source, leave the contingency. So if little, I'm gonna say nickel and dime, there's no such thing as a nickel and dime anymore, $1 or $2 million come back, yeah. Francie?
yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I know you're working to keep it as economical as possible, and it's not fun to come and make another ask, and I know you're doing your best to keep it down, so just want to let you know that.
Okay, so do we want to wait till June to see the details out of supplemental? When is our next supplemental coming?
June 7th.
Is that the regular schedule? We like to keep them on schedule, so let's just do it when we see the whole lump of supplementals.
It's a lot less work for everybody if we do it that way. So.
I know, but I'm getting tired of these supplemental packets that are this big and we just keep putting money places, but.
So may I just clear up? So we will move forward with
Yes.
the project using contingency, how the project funding that we have in place, and then I'll come and do the ask in June, and then that would backfill.
The contingency,
Okay.
because yeah, just,
Okay.
the money's somewhere.
Okay.
And then but we want to keep that contingency moving forward because we're gonna, chances are, we'll run into something else. Just give us a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So, all
Okay.
right, so you got it? Thank you, guys.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you. All right. Next, on open discussion, we have Sam, and we have a letter before us.
Hi there, everyone. I'm here today with Barbara Freeman, who is the CEO of La Medici, and we are asking the board to sign a letter of support for the financial and regional financial empowerment center that we are working on with the CFE Fund, which is an organization that helps mostly municipalities like cities create financial empowerment centers that are geared towards providing free financial consulting to folks who are looking to get more financially stable. I know you've all heard some of the background with Nan months ago and Barbara, and we are working on phase 1 of this project with the CFE Fund, which involves just committing to the process, and at which point in phase 2, we can hopefully get up to $100,000 in matching funds to get this project off the ground. But one of the requirements of part 1 is getting a letter of support from a local government. It's a little different here because they mostly work with cities and we're doing a more regional approach. So it's interesting to be involved at this level. They've done this in numerous cities large cities throughout the country, and there is a statewide Colorado Financial Empowerment Center that I know you signed a letter of support for as well. Just wanted to bring this today and see if anybody had any questions. I know we've discussed it a few times before, and Barbara's also here to answer any more questions since she's been with this since the beginning.
Okay, I have a quick question. What's out of pocket for Pitkin County?
So at this point, there is no financial commitment. We're committing to working through the planning process. We are going to work with Garfield and Eagle counties to come up with the matching funds to get that $100,000. Now, if that can't happen, then the project won't move forward. But that's really part of phase 2. So phase 1, just as a requirement to work with the CFE fund, is to get just the support from local government that we're willing to move forward in good faith with the process. So there's no financial commitment at this point.
Okay, thank you. And who's eligible to participate? Do you have to have a cost of income, your income level, or,
Yeah, everybody actually, regardless of income, it's a good question, can participate and receive financial counseling. So it's for all residents.
Great, thank you, Barbara, appreciate that.
So the funds the $100,000 grant needs to be matched, and that would be a third for each county. So that sounds like $33,000 for Pitkin. Is that not right?
That would be likely how we'll approach it. We'll probably try to find more, just to make it more robust, looking at grants and philanthropic donations and other things. But yeah, at this point, that's how we're looking at moving forward, is splitting that 30,000 or 100,000 between the 3 counties to get it off the ground and get those matching funds.
And then how will that money be spent in this project?
Can I add 2 things, Francie, to the answer before? First of all, the 100,000 is also over 2 years. Okay. So not all the money would be in year 1 anyway. And we have been working, I think you've met a number of the people that have been on the call, so we're bringing along some of the community foundations, Colorado Trust and others along as well. So to bear that. The bulk of the money, what this letter would allow us to do is go into phase 2, which is the real planning process. So at that point, we'll really understand where the costs go. But I could tell you that based on the work that I've done with the Denver Office of Financial Empowerment, the bulk of the cost goes directly to the trained financial counselors.
That's what I was
So the people actually performing the service.
Okay, great, thanks, Barbara.
And Sam, where would our money come from?
We have options with utilizing TANF funding. We, like Barbara mentioned, will be talking to various community foundations. We can look at possible grants. So we're pretty flexible with where that can come from without it coming directly from the general fund or anything like that.
Thanks, Sam. How'd you know I was going that direction? Kelly?
I actually think that this is a really good use of our ARPA funds, given that these will serve people who have probably been most disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. So I would just flag that for consideration when that conversation comes back around.
Kelly, that's a really good point. The CFE fund have actually helped cities across the country secure the ARPA funding. So if that's a way that you want to go, they have absolute expertise in that field. And in part 2 of the academy, which is still an exploration stage for us, they could meet, and discuss that with you. They'll actually come to Pitkin County, and they're willing to host a roundtable discussion or come directly to meet you. So.
Great, thank you. I would say from a global view, I would love the philanthropic contributions from folks who have sort of generated some of the financial difficulty in the economies here regionally to maybe help contribute that. And then, as often has to happen, government fills in where those philanthropy or markets don't.
Let's ask Pfizer.
Yeah, so, and who do you need signature from, Sam?
I believe we can just get a signature from the board chair. Barbara, is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, I think that's right. Mm-hmm.
And when do you need it?
by the 8th. Unfortunately, is a quick turnaround, so this was the soonest we could get it on the agenda. Sorry for that short notice.
I'm not going anywhere. So if the board is okay with this, I can come in as soon as staff lets me know, or if you want me to sign it personally, or we can do electronic.
I'm good with it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Barbara. It's good to see you, and thanks, Sam.
Thanks so
Yeah,
much.
thank you so much. Bye now.
All right, we have others in the audience, so
Okay. We wanted to bring to you what's coming into CCI, which is a collective bargaining bill that's coming to the state. And Ann's here. We've done some financial analysis. And Kara has some more background. I haven't been on top of it. So that's where these ladies are
I
here.
just printed out a whole bunch of information about it too, and of course I left it upstairs because I didn't know you guys were coming today to talk about it.
Thank you, because I was gonna flag this for open discussion and see if we wanted to have any of our lobbying experts join us.
Which
So
committee is it
that,
with?
I'm sure they'd be willing to.
Finance?
The Finance
Is
Committee?
my mic on?
I don't know. Use your red light
Yes. It has not been introduced yet.
Okay.
So and some of you on the call might be more of experts. I was getting up to speed in the past week, but as some background there for the public's information, there was a consideration for a collective bargaining bill that was planned to be introduced at the beginning of this session. There has been some back and forth, and I think through a letter from the governor's office, that collective bargaining is now being targeted to just counties and higher education as an arm of the state. So municipalities and other government or special districts have been removed from the bill. We learned from CCI yesterday that it sounds like there is a revision to the bill that is being planned to be introduced at the end of this week, and so they have asked for a fiscal analysis from counties of what that impact would be if it was to be passed. And so that's why we're here with you today. I think some of you might have more background on the back and forth, but that's what we know, is that the draft bill is being planned to be introduced. And so I'm going to pause there because that might have been a really quick overview.
So, is it
it's-
going to impact us?
Yeah. So I'll let Ann go over some of the fiscal analysis if the bill was to be, based on the draft that we've seen, if the bill were to be passed.
Right. Obviously, there's significant impacts other than the fiscal side of things, but I'm here to talk about the fiscal. There was circulating a template that I think all the counties have used to estimate the costs, and this is based upon studies that have been done in other states. There's kind of two methodologies that have been employed, and I've run the numbers for both methodologies and used the same template format as all the other counties in Colorado. So basically the costs have been extrapolated from both our total budgeted expenditures and our salaries and wages and benefits, so our payroll expenditures. There was a study done in California where a lot of this information is derived from. I'll just give you a summary of the costs that came out on the template. So initial unionization campaign costs, which have to be borne by the organization, can run anything between $400,000 to $2 million. For our purposes, I was conservative and I used the $400,000, which was the minimum amount that was given to us. The research also indicates that the cost of running a unionized operation is 25% to 35% more than a non-unionized one. And so if we use this generalized estimate for Pitkin County's costs and applied it to our general budget, the additional annual costs per year would be somewhere between $11.5 and $16 million a year. Workers that are covered by a union contract in California typically earn an average of almost 13% more than non-union workers. And so we can estimate that our wages would go up almost $6 million a year in Peking County. What else do they say? So total additional annual operating expenses for an organization with a union presence of Peking County size, they estimate around $2,000 per employee. We have 366 employees, so that would be $732,000. And this is for, HR personnel, attorneys, all of the, those things that go in to that. Apparently, also, there's a loss of productivity or output of union workers versus non-union, and it's estimated to be about 2.4%. And with our workforce of total salary and benefits of $46 million, that would be $1.1 million a year in lost productivity or reduction in equivalent services. Union dues that the county employees pay, or we pay on their behalf, run to 1.5 to 4% of earnings. So for the county, for us, that would be $490,000 on the low end, or up to 1.3 million on the high end in union dues, and half of those would be sent out of state to the international headquarters. And then there's a number of intangible costs which haven't been included in this. So in sum, there's a lot of numbers I threw out there. This proposed collective bargaining bill, we could expect a one-time expense of approximately $400,000 to set up with the unionization campaign. Ongoing annual costs would range between 11.5 to 16 million if we use that generalized 25 to 35% estimate, or on the lower end, annual costs of around 8 million if we just use their second kind of method of investing. And as you know, we do have restrictions on our revenue streams, so we would have to go to taxpayer if we were to continue to provide the same level of services with the same level of employees and so on. I'm not quite sure where we would find the revenue to pay for
That's
it.
going to be my question. So we're at about 26 to 30 million a year?
Just using the kind of cost estimate template that was provided to us, so.
That was really depressing. No wonder Amazon fights it so hard.
I'm sorry?
No wonder Amazon fights it so
But they
hard.
operate at a profit, we don't.
Yeah.
And
So,
I guess maybe just the only other background I would provide is that as staff, so we understand CCI and CCAT might not be on the same position of these bills, which we're leaving it up to all of you as commissioners. So we're just doing the analysis of stuff and leaving it all up to you of the position on the bills, because I think that there's some differing opinions between CCI and CCAT on it.
so we could potentially have a huge, not that I'm against unions, but when you're talking an entity that is a public entity, the impacts are so much different than, for me anyway, a private entity that operates with a profit, in some cases a significant profit, where when you're talking with us, we don't operate at a profit, and what it hurts most is the people we serve. I mean, it'll help our employees in some way, but it's going to have a huge impact to the people we serve. So, Kelly, please.
I just want to back up a little bit because I feel like there's a lot of negotiation that's still happening on this bill, and so we should just keep an open mind as to what the framing of it is. And so I guess I would, I wouldn't hold hard and fast to what we've necessarily heard here, because there's a lot up in the air as far as what how many collective bargaining units, like, you know, if all the employees can, or if it's limited to a certain number, you know, if there's restrictions on the types of employees that can enter into collective bargaining agreements. So, you know, I would again suggest that perhaps we invite some expertise from CCAT and or CCI who are very much at the table on these negotiations. I have not been sort of following the day-to-day detail of those conversations, but they are happening on day-to-day, and we are like at the table through those memberships. And I just would note that, like, politically, it seems like this is a high priority, and the governor wants to see a version of this passed. So, you know, we might, I don't know, we should think through our position for sure, but we should also think through consequences of outcomes as well, and what the different outcomes would be and where our leverage might be. I will say, I think it's important that we decide on a position, because once this is introduced, you know, both of our memberships are going to be taking votes on this. You know, CCI is a supermajority organization. I imagine the supermajority will say no, knowing CCI. On CCAT, there is definitely a different lean here. There's a lot of, I think, compassion and support for union membership. You know, again, from what I understand of this is an elective process. And fire districts have had this elective process and have not seen it, you know, take off. So we may not have as much to fear as we might think.
So, and did you say cities are out of this? Well, cities, do we have any idea why they based their decision, and can't we say we want out of this?
I had a conversation with Eric Bergman. I'm happy to provide that, unless Kelly or I mean, some of you are probably in these too, so if you have any additional ones. But my understanding is that the nexus is really counties and higher education are arms of the state government, and this is being modeled off of the state WINS program. Don't ask me what WINS stands for. It's some acronym of collective bargaining. And so the nexus of why counties and higher education is because they are an arm of the state government.
Could be a huge hit to higher education that's already lacking in funding. So I think it's something we definitely need to monitor. And Kelly, you're right. We'll have to get more information and then determine what position we want to take. And
sorry, I didn't follow through on my thought, because CCAT operates under a consensus -2 model. So if there are 2 counties that say no to this at CCAT, they will not take a position on it. Okay. You know, and I don't know what the plan is there to like poll everybody, but it's just to think about. And I think we need to think quickly, because the session is moving very quickly, and they only have about 5 weeks left.
Okay, so we need to definitely keep an eye on it. So if we need to keep bringing it back with the changes, that's important. Steve, please.
Yeah, just knowing CCI, I don't see any way that CCI would support this. They would most likely oppose it. The commissioners, they're going to consider this an unfunded mandate unless the state backfills the salaries at the county level for us. The commissioners in general are going to be opposed to it. Even if it could be the best thing for the county employees, it's not the best thing for the county budget, given most people's budget.
Okay, so I think we just need to keep a very quick, close eye on it.
Well, I guess maybe some more direction, because it is, it sounds like it's going to be introduced sometime this week and heard in committee next week. So it seems like at the very longest is coming back. I know you guys have a full board meeting next week, but
we have a full week next week.
Yeah. So if you need a position, it sounds like you might need it by next week. I don't know if 2 weeks is.
Well, but we don't even know what the changes are going to be yet. If you say it's still morphing.
Right.
So let's just try and get some discussion on for Tuesday. We can just stay from Tuesday to Wednesday and start short-term rentals. Just keep rolling, Francie.
I do think that there will be a fact sheet coming out from CCAT in today or in the next days or so that you all should look for that could help us.
If you can have somebody send it on to all of us so we can all keep up to speed, that would probably be appropriate. Francie, please.
Do you think it'll be discussed on Thursday or Friday at would it be finance or finance probably?
I would think general government.
General government? Which, is that like the first one on Thursday or?
Of this week or next week?
No, it's
usually after justice. It's usually the second one. So
Okay.
justice and public safety and then general government would be my guess.
Okay, thanks.
But if they're still morphing it, I don't know if it'll.
I'll look. But
Yeah.
they'll be discussing it even
Yeah.
if they're.
What's happening. Okay, is that it? Do we have any good news about budget here today, like Snowmaster with all the money they raked in? Because I have a couple more things, and then I have a hard stop because I'm going over to another meeting, but I'm going to do this really quick, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Gail Schwartz just sent me a letter asking if it was okay for me to sign on. It is a letter supporting a grant application from Habitat for Humanity for Colorado, or for Congressional Congressional Direct Spending Funds, CDS funds. I'll send the letter on. I'll have Charlotte send the letter on to each of us individually. You could get back to me. She needs the letter by Friday. Greg, you're in this letter, Greg, your quotes.
Huh.
So I'll have Charlotte
I
send
can't
it
wait
to
to see it.
I'll have to send it to you guys, but I need to know if I need to sign it so I can get it to Gail by Friday if it's okay with everybody. Okay, so that's.
I just sent that request from Hickenlooper's office or from Bennett's office for, the CDS list is forming, and they're saying if you have a request, get it to us by Friday. And I wasn't certain if the courthouse funding, for instance, would fall into that. It's possible. So I sent that to Phyllis just now too, and to Jody.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
So I don't know if Rich wants to chime in because I had also forwarded it and he had written back to me.
I would be happy to. What we've found is that multiple applications may not be favorable. However, I think in talking with, Carol went and researched that a little bit more. I think there's some that are putting in multiple applications. Our bigger concern as far as the airport goes is that we've heard that they really need to be shovel ready. And I think the dollar amounts that we have seen ours is going to exceed it quite a bit. So what we have elected from a staff's perspective is to do the microgrid. Is that we do know that we can, you've heard kind of modularize that. So we can go in and get some more batteries, maybe some more solar. And that one seems to make a little sense. We've already got it funded. We're just short some dollars. So I think that's where we're headed. Unless the board sees it otherwise, we could certainly throw something together. But in our discussions with the FAA and some others, they just, they didn't seem to be warm and fuzzy about submitting anything with the airport at this point in time.
Okay. Yeah, I think the microgrid would be great. Does the board concerned if we support the Habitat grant and then we submit our own grant? Or why doesn't the board take a look at Gail's letter, let me know, and Rich, same thing for you. If you're going to have to submit a grant and you need anything, I will be available the rest of this week. You just have to track me down. Okay. I have one more thing. I was contacted by a reporter about the Uinta Basin oil train that's going to be rolling through Glenwood Canyon, and they wanted to know if the Board of County Commissioners has a position on this. This is the crude oil tanker cars, significant number of them that's planned to come from Utah, heading to, I don't know, petroleum plants, maybe in the Gulf Coast, I'm not sure where, but the route for the cars is right through the middle of Glenwood Canyon. I myself have very, very great concerns over crude oil. I mean, it's not going to take much, and we know what's happening in Glenwood Canyon. If we have a rock slide or something, and it takes, a series of those cars off the track, we have contamination in the Colorado River from here to the Sea of Cortez.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would oppose it as strongly as I possibly could.
So do you guys want me to get back in touch with this reporter and let her know that we have briefly discussed it in our position at this time? As we have concerns, we'd like more information, and at this time, we aren't in a position to support it. We are leaning in the direction of not support based on environmental concerns, et cetera.
I appreciate that, Patty. Thank you. I would love to find out what Eagle and Garco commissioners are saying about it.
I think Garfield County has some concerns, but we'll see. So I'll pick her brain.
Rapid transformation away from fossil fuels.
Yeah.
So,
Dump them in the Colorado River. But that being said, there was one other thing. Apparently Congresswoman Boebert is introducing a bill to get the federal government to look at different routes for Glenwood Canyon in case of closures. The only county commissioner she has chosen to talk to is Garfield. She's said she's going to be talking to affected counties who are affected by closures of Glenwood Canyon. And Matthew Bennett did an article on it yesterday with the Daily News, and I called him and I said, I think it's interesting. We are directly affected by canyon closures. And it was interesting that the Congresswoman didn't reach out to talk to us about this bill. She's looking at maybe improvements over Cottonwood Pass for vehicles, not for trucking, but to use that as a different detour route. But I don't think she's contacted the Eagle County Commissioners either, and I think the other side of Cottonwood is in Eagle County. So I just want to give the boards a head up on that, and I think it would be nice if the Congresswoman let us know, since, you know, if it's something that might work in our favor during closures of Glenwood, you know, it's possible we could support this. It's just for funding to evaluate the options for detours.
how'd your meeting go with her yesterday, Patty?
She didn't come. I don't know what the mix-up was, but the congressman from Delta, the state representative from Delta was there. Do you guys know him, Kelly? Do you know him?
Don Coram?
Yeah, the young guy? No, Matt Soper.
Oh, I don't know him, no.
Oh, yeah, Matt Soper is the. So did you go to the tour of the greenhouse in Soper?
Yeah, you guys have got to go. It is.
That is amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
It is amazing, and the lettuce is superb. It's 250.
Kelly, are you caucusing this week? Kelly, in Denver?
No.
I'm joining on Zoom on
you are?
Friday night.
But you are caucusing, right?
Just for House District Assembly. Just House District 57.
Okay, well, anybody want to say anything to me? I've got District 3.
CD3?
CD3. Anybody got any opinions on the Democrats?
I haven't really talked with any of them other than Adam Frisch. And Adam is extremely intelligent. He's very fiscally conservative for the most part. He's got a pretty good grip. He's asking a lot of the right questions. It's just difficult to run for Congress from Pitkin County, from Aspen, Colorado. And I think he'd be a great asset because of his level of intelligence, and he's very well spoken, but I'm not sure. I think we're going to end up with Lauren at the end of the day.
Okay, well, I'm thinking about Donald Valdez.
Steve? As well.
So I really like Saul Sandoval from Pueblo. When she and other candidates spoke at the Democratic dinner last fall, she was the only one who was charismatic at all. I think the others maybe were intelligent, maybe had, they were good businessmen or whatever, but she was the one who had charisma. And Lauren Boebert is very charismatic, and people like her, I think, because of that. And out of the candidates I have listened to this point, Saul Sandoval is the only one who is like that at all. So, I personally am supporting her. Whether she would be the best one to actually be a congressman, I'm not sure, but you have to think about who has a chance of being elected.
Well, I've been following all of their positions, and Donald Valdez is the only one who talks about women's rights. and protecting reproductive rights. And I mean, he's got some really strong positions, and I've seen him a little bit at at the state level. So I'm kind of leaning towards him. But I mean, we'll send on what, 2 or to the primary? Will it be 2?
Adam said he was already on the ballot.
Yeah, Adam, he got
Petitioned or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Francie, you're not going representing us anyway, so you can.
No, I know. I just wanted opinions. Just.
And I don't remember Saul speaking at the Democratic dinner for some reason. Interesting.
So Don Valdez reminds me kind of John Salazar.
Salazar?
He's very similar personality, rancher from the San Luis Valley type, and Latino background, or Hispanic, more Hispanic. They've been there for hundreds of years in the San Luis Valley.
Yeah, he's 5th generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wondering if anybody had any strong information for me. It's really hard. I talked to Debbie Burnett quite a bit, and so.
Okay, anything else, guys? I'm sending this letter to Charlotte right now so she can send it on to the one from Gail. Okay, and then if you guys would get back to me, then I know what to do we need to get it off by Friday. Any other open discussion? I think my issues are pretty good. Great. So I'm going over to the prescribed fire lessons at the fire station. So I'll let you guys know if I learn anything new about Smokey the Bear.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
From what?
From your laptop.